Hi, everybody. I hope you're doing awesome today. My name is Jackie. For those of you who are new here, let's talk about October's astrology. And instead of doing a lead-in, I'm going to just break it out straight out of the gate into each of the 12 signs. Let's get started with our Aries friends. Aries, okay, so let's get into your energies. Well, I'm going to go into screen. I'm going to share my screen so you guys could see. I know sometimes you guys love this, some of you hate it, but well, that's how we're going to do it this month because I actually want to focus on 10 specific things that we're going to be looking at this month. And I just wanted to show it to you because some of the energies are worth talking about, some of the gangs that are hanging out around the energy. So let's get started with October 2nd. By the way, I don't even remember. Did I introduce myself? My name is Jackie. For those of you who might be new here, I'm a Western Whole House astrologer. I actually look at everything through the lens of psychology, not to be complicated, but I am an evolutionary astrologer. If you want to work with me privately, all my info is in the description box below each of my videos. So, Aries, let's break out starting with October 2nd. So this October 2nd, we have the new moon and solar eclipse, both of them in the sign of Libra. But Aries, look at all of the energy that you have in that seventh house. I mean, this is a lot of stuff going on. We have the South Node, we have the Sun, we have Black Moon Lilith, we have Australia, we have Mercury, we have the Moon, we have Juno in here. We have all of these friends hanging out. And then, of course, Vulcan is only 3 degrees away from that transiting moon. So there's going to be a lot of emotions in the area of relationships. So that seventh house is anything that's got to do with literal or metaphorical contracts. So that would be your marriage. This would be your boss or bosses. This would be your energetic output at work. So literally like the energy that you expel at work to get your job complete. The seventh house is also very connected to our doctors, if any of you are dealing with doctors right now. So let's just talk about this new moon brings light. It brings realizations. It brings things to the forefront where we can actually look at them to say, how do I feel about that? Because the moon is very connected to our emotions, our feelings, our emotional stability, our emotional security. And while it's happening with the solar eclipse, remember the sun is very connected to our ego consciousness, is very connected to our career, it's very connected to our innate desire for joy, right? This is all with the sun, with that solar energy represents, but the eclipses take something away. And in the sign of Libra, in the house of Libra, like Libra naturally lives in everyone's seventh house. It is in your seventh house as well. So we're looking at this idea again of relationships. Now it is a Venus ruled energy. So this is very connected to Libra. The glyph is the scale. So it's very connected to, for some of you, some sort of legal situation. But it could also be very connected to finances because Venus is very connected to finances, but it's within the realm of that seventh house. So it could be very connected to, if it's not everyone that I indicated already, a significant other, a boss, bosses, if it's a group of people, your energetic output, a doctor. It could be representing some sort of change that's going on with somebody who you might be involved in some sort of legal situation with, okay? Or some sort of legality, right? Anything like that. This could also bring some sort of swapping out or some sort of change in the arena of your finances as well. Now, Juno, I want to just go through all of the players that are hanging in your seventh house here. Juno is very connected to marriage and things that we're very, very impassioned about, right? So this is Juno. So Juno is transiting in that Libra energy. Then we have Vulcan. Now, Vulcan is about bringing something down to the ground. And it's different than Pluto in that it's not about, although a lot of astrologers typically do connect Vulcan to Pluto, they're actually quite different. For those of you who have been doing astrology for eons and eons, you might not be too sure. Vulcan hit the scene not too long ago, but we pay attention to him now because it's about bringing something down to the ground and then completely revamping it. This is not like this is completely ending a way of doing something, right? That's what Pluto, that's what Vulcan does. You know, Pluto is very much about change and transformation. Vulcan does not want to change and transform everything. Vulcan wants to bring it down to the ground, go down the block and build it with different materials, a totally different mindset. Okay. So keep in mind, this is in the house of very important relationships. This is working with the moon, your emotions, working with Mercury, the way you think, the way you communicate, working with Estrella. Estrella is what is controlling me here? What have I not been allowing myself to let go of when I know damn well I have to let go of something? I have to let go of the way of thinking, a way of doing something in this space. Black Moon Lilith, 10 degrees. Look at this 10 degrees, people. Look, 10, 10, 10. Australia, Black Moon Lilith, and the Sun all sitting on each other's lap at 10 degrees. Okay, 10 degrees on October 2nd. Black Moon Lilith in Libra, where you get it, where is that blind spot in the area of relationship, in the area of money, in the area of being able to figure some sort of circumstance out having to do with your boss or the way in which you work. And it's also working with the focus of the sun. So there's so much focus here. And just for good measure, let's just throw the South Node in there, which is retrogrades, which is internal manifestation. So something's got to end the way that you're doing something in that area. Now, this does not have to be a bad thing, especially because Vesta is entering into this Libra energy at the end of the month, which is all about perseverance and trying to figure something out. So I don't want you to be worried like, oh my gosh, am I getting divorced? Am I losing my job? Am I being changed in departments? Is something happening with this person that I'm in a legal situation with? The short answer is yes, there's going to be change there, but it doesn't have to be horrible. Okay. Let's not be glass half empty. All right. Let's be glass half full sensibility, but there is no question that there is something that's changing in this arena for you guys. You're thinking it, Mercury, you're feeling it, the moon, the change is there, having to do with what it is that you are committed to and the way that it's been manifesting. A lot of you are going to be very focused on healing relationships, on healing some sort of situation. Now let's go into the second point that I want to focus on October 9th. So let me bring us up to October 9th here. Okay, and let me just go into hours so that we could bring it back to you. So here we are on, okay, no, I wanted to go. Okay. Let's just bring it back to you. Okay. Yeah. So October 9th, Jupiter is going retrograde in Gemini. So this Gemini energy is in your third house, and Jupiter is going retrograde. So Jupiter going retrograde in Gemini, you know, Jupiter is very much about expansion, right? Is very much about, you always want to be mindful, by the way, if you're looking at Jupiter, you have to know, for example, at least until June of 2025, what's going on in your personal third house, right? So normally it would be like your personal birth chart would be in the inner ring, and then these outer rings, this is the current energies. How are they speaking? Because Jupiter expands whatever it's within 10 degrees of. So if it's within 10 degrees of something in your birth chart, like your Mars in that Gemini area, that could really make you very prone to argue and start arguments. If it's Saturn, you could be feeling super stuck, right? If it's your natal Pluto, man, are you going through a lot of change right now in the way that you communicate, right? So these are just, some different ways of understanding it. You have to be mindful of that. But just to talk about Jupiter going retrograde in Gemini in the third house, there could be feelings of like not feeling very understood when it comes to your beliefs, your ideas about moving forward, your ideas on, maybe if you and it's you and a significant other talking about a long distance vacation or some sort of situation going on in foreign lands or foreign travels. There could be some sort of situation going on having to do with a legality, because Jupiter is very connected to lawyers, legalities, local governance. There could be feeling misunderstood when it comes to your politics and when it comes to your belief system, and especially if you're dealing with third house entities, which would be your siblings, your neighbors, old friends, extended family members. So it's not that you're not feeling heard and not feeling understood, but you could feel like not completely not completely embraced in the area of communication. And that could definitely be a little frustrating. Okay, it's not going to be for that long, it's only going to be for about a month, but I just want to let you know that on the 9th you are going to be feeling that. Okay, now let's move forward a couple of days to the 11th. Okay, let's go into hours so I can. Okay, cool. You're still in the first house. Okay, so October 11th, Pluto is going direct in Capricorn. So, it's at that very crucial 29th degree, which does indicate the shadow manifestation of that Capricorn energy being a thing, right? And so this is where, though, Pluto is going to finally go direct. So it's going to be a little later that day. So you're going to see, it's still going to be in your sign, but let's just get the absolute time of that Pluto going. Okay, so the time that Pluto is going to be going direct is going to be around between 9 and 10 o'clock that night. Okay, about 9 and 10 o'clock, the night of the 11th. Pluto is going to be going direct in Capricorn, which is going to be good because, now it's been clean up on aisle 9 when it comes to something having to do with long-term plans, something connected to a career, something connected to the status of your marriage, and not necessarily even like your dynamic within the marriage, but maybe you and your partner are trying to get something done, and finally something is moving forward. You finally feel like, okay, finally, here we go. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. So it'll be a nice energy to finally feel that directness. Now, it's only going to be another month there before Pluto moves into Aquarius. So don't get too comfortable there with that Pluto in that last degree of Capricorn. Not that Pluto in 29 degrees could ever be totally comfortable for anyone. It's always everybody's feeling like, oh, the shoe is going to drop at any second, And I, a lot of my clients are feeling this, like feeling like I feel the shoe is going to drop any second, or when am I going to start to feel more pragmatically in control of things? And the analogy that I'm giving is it's as if your backyard furniture is also it's trapped in a tornado, and your favorite lounge chair is up in that tornado, and you want to just pull it down and be able to sit on it. Well, you can't. You can't just yet because the storm is too severe. Don't even waste your energy. And the energy is going to be like that until November, middle of November, when Pluto stations in your 11th house for the next 20 years. Then he's not going back anymore. But it is this back and forth dance that he's been doing for like a year and a half, 2 years now. And it's just all this weird change. It's 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, 6 steps forward, 4 steps back. What is happening, right? And so the positive thing about this going direct is that now we can actively finally clean up and close out whatever's going on there, having to do with that 10th house, career, public reputation, standing in the world, your long-term plans. So really good energy to solidify things that are going on, especially if it has to do with work, especially if it has to do with relationship, okay? Anything like that, have the big conversations. Now, the Pluto energy is squaring Mercury here. It is between your 10th house and your 7th house, and squares are necessary to have the important conversations, even if it's not comfortable. It's still gonna be effective for you to just sort of lay everything out on the table and let's have the conversation. Now, a couple of days later, Mercury is going to be going into, on the 13th, Mercury is going to be going into the sign of Scorpio. So when Mercury goes into Scorpio, we are intense. We are very serious. Scorpio is a very serious energy. It's very controlling. It's going to be in the 8th house, having the conversation about shared resources, shared intimacy, that death, that birth, that next phase of life conversation. Now, generally speaking, for you guys, just so that you guys know, your 8th house, so you have to know your own personal birth chart. Whatever's in your 11th house is going to be very lit up. Your 8th house is going to be very lit up. Wherever Scorpio is in your chart, right? So for you guys, Scorpio is in the eighth house. It's going to be very lit up. And wherever Aquarius is, right? Which of course is in your third house. So those are the big houses of lots of change. And so you're going to be communicating differently by this time next year. You just are. You're going to be thinking differently. You're going to be conversing differently. And a lot of it is going to start now with this Mercury going into Pluto ruled Scorpio in that eighth house, right? And with that Pluto energy finally going direct in that sign of Capricorn, there are going to be a lot of serious conversations. Now, this is the only thing. Pluto can be very controlling. He can be. And he can be very anxiety ridden. And there is a lot of need to have a conversation about maybe things that you don't want to have a conversation about, but the energy is going to be really good for you to have it, especially over the course of the next month. Um, so that's going to be really good. But you have to be mindful of communication when it's in Scorpio, because Scorpio can be very passive aggressive, can be very controlling. And so we want to make sure that we are being fair and we're being mindful and we're not burning any bridges. And and that we're being healthy and as healthy as we can be in our communication, particularly in relationships, because Black Moon Lilith is transiting in your seventh house, and it is a house of mirroring. So even though you may think a partner is the problem in communication, they may very well be, but you are as well. Right? You are as well. And so it's this, even if it's this simply that you're allowing something to continue, okay, that conversation has to be there. Let's go on to the 17th. So from the 13th, we're going to go to the 17th, and the 17th Venus goes into Sagittarius. Now, Sagittarius energy in your ninth house, this is a naturally ruled Jupiter house, as which is the major benefic, right? Major beneficial energy. And Venus is the baby benefic. So we have mama and papa, the papa energy and the baby energy in there, all wanting to bring you those Jupiterian blessings. Absolutely lovely. It is opposing in the third house. We have this very powerful Sedna energy, which is about making making lemonade out of lemons. If you're feeling controlled by anything, having to do with a family situation, having to do even with some sort of business situation, it's leaning in and making the best out of something. So Venus, though, also in Sagittarius in that ninth house, this could be a great vacation, going away with a significant other on vacation. This could be very good for your money. If you're launching, marketing, advertising, you have any sort of business situation going on in that ninth house, really, really positive. Great energy for father energy, second spouse energy as well. Yeah, I mean, I'm liking it. I'm liking it. Anything like a little tricky as a side thing. Not really seeing it. It's in a 1, 2, 3, 4. It's in a very wide trine to the North Node. I'll take a wide trine with that North Node in the first house any day of the week. That is nice, having to do with the path that you're on, Aries. Hopefully, you will be feeling pretty optimistic around that energy. That is what Venus wishes for you, even though I do see you have a lot of things going on. There are a lot of choices, a lot of balls in the air, as we say, right? So, same day on the 17th, we do have the full moon in your energy. Right. It's going to be happening a little later on that day, but on the 17th nonetheless. So, yeah, I mean, I like this for you because the full moon is bringing something to fruition. And because Venus is also in that ninth house energy, the house of blessings, is something that you're going to be realizing, something that's going to be coming to fruition is ultimately going to be something that's going to serve you. And it's going to serve you well, and it's going to serve your path well, right? So again, optimism, good stuff. Dealing with that 17th of October. Let's move forward a couple of days to the 22nd. I'm just looking down because I made some notes. I don't want to leave anything out. So the 22nd, yeah, the sun enters Scorpio, okay, overnight, as you can see. So we can look 23rd, same energy here, overnight pass into, now the focus is going to be on your seventh house for the next month. So the sun in Scorpio is intense. It's very sexy. It's very controlling though. It's a beautiful energy for, having some very serious conversations, like real serious, especially around things that need to change. Aries, look at these three together. We cannot only look at the sun, we have to look at Vulcan, we have to look at Mercury. They are not that far away from each other. Okay, the sun is out of that 10-degree bound, yes, but Mercury is still within bounds of Vulcan. Having the conversations of what needs to change in order for the relationship to be happy. So expect a lot of open conversation, lots of open conversation here. Wait, let me just go back here because I need to bring this back into your energy. I'm giving you a seventh house interpretation. My bad. Let me go back. I didn't even dip down to double check that we were still in your energy. This is going to be happening in your eighth house. Yes. So the sun is going to be going into your eighth house, not your seventh house. It's been in the seventh house. But what is that eighth house? That eighth house has to do with sex and intimacy. Again, very sexy in that space still. Having an open conversation about money, about having a baby, about not having a baby, about getting married, not getting married. There's going to be a lot of focus on wanting to wrap up some sort of legal situation. Now, the eighth house could be the decision to get married. It could also be the decision to go your own separate ways. So this could certainly be having the open conversation about divorce and how is it all going to roll out, okay? Conversation, Mercury, what's ending, what needs to be done differently, Vulcan energy in there, sun, lots of focus there, having to do with that sun dipping in overnight, okay? Overnight is dipping into, overnight on the 22nd is going to be dipping into that eighth house for you. And then on Saturday, the 26th, we're going to have Vesta going into Libra. So this is a really nice energy as well. Let's come up to the 22nd. So again, we're going into the overnight hour, but we're just going to keep it there because I don't want to confuse you guys. So Vesta, you see, is at 29 degrees overnight. Vesta is going to be going in, is going to be joining the party with Black Moon Lilith and the South Node. Now, keep in mind, Vesta is a very important energy to understand because Vesta is all about perseverance and wanting to work something out a particular way. Now, this is the little caveat that we have to all be careful of, right? Because we're all going to be a little bit like this. When Vesta's hanging with Black Moon Lilith and the South Node is excretion. It's the need to let go of something having to do with relationship. It could be a job, right? Because it's connected to bosses. You might be hearing from a doctor that you have to stop doing something. You might be very pressured to start working differently. Anything in this arena, but you want to be very open-eyed here, Aries, okay? Because it is working with Black Moon Lilith. So you want to make sure that you're not self-sabotaging yourself by demanding that something be a certain way. You just want to make sure that you're in the healthiest space of communication, which is very open. Okay, very, very open. Because it's in the seventh house, you might be dealing with this energy from a partner. But because it's the house of mirrors, again, you may be part of the issue as well. So understand that because there's going to be a conversation towards the end of the month. What are you willing to put your energy into to make something work out well? Now, sometimes that might even be, what is the best way to end this marriage? What is the best way to leave this job? What is the best way to handle this health situation? What is the best way? And the best way may not be 100% your way. It may be someplace in the middle. All right. Because that Black Moon Lilith, that would be the ninth thing that I really wanted to talk to you about. It's only 3 degrees from the South Node. So there's got to be this idea of letting go of that blind spot where you can have a hard time seeing it, where you might be a little unfair in the relationship area right now. This doesn't mean that the other person's right and you're wrong, you're right, they're wrong. It's not about that. It's about realizing that maybe exercising some empathy and trying to find a common ground is probably going to be the best way to go. Still dealing with that Saturn energy in the 12th, and that has to do with boundaries in the house with no boundaries. So you're going to have to really focus on creating healthy boundaries by the end of October. Where do you end and where does another person begin? What is okay? What is not okay? What are you willing to concede to? And where do you need to draw a line? So hopefully this was helpful for you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye. Of course, I hope you guys are doing great. So let's get into, sorry, I'm just pulling my computer and camera everywhere. Let's talk about October, and let's get started with October 2nd. We have the new moon and the solar eclipse in the sign of Libra, and this is happening in your sixth house. So there are so many energies in the sixth house, Taurus. You have, I'm just looking at your chart, you have Juno, which represents marriage, things that you're very committed to. We have Vulcan, which is about ending something in a certain way once and for all. The moon, very connected to our emotions. Mercury, what's on our minds and the way we communicate. Black moon Lilith, our blind spot, where we can get in our own way, especially when it comes to money and or relationships. We have Astraea in there. Astraea is very connected to what do we need to let go of that we've been holding on to too tight? The sun, which is the focus. It has to very connected to ego consciousness, very connected to your career, your long-term plans, right? Over the long term, very connected to all of these things. And then, of course, the South Node. All of these are in your sixth house. Daily work environment, day-to-day responsibilities, your health, mental, physical, and emotional. Very connected to pets as well. So what happens with new moons? New moons are things that are realized, and there's going to be a lot of talking. There's going to be a lot of thinking, sharing your emotions. There's going to be some sort of big decision that needs to go down this month. There's no question about it, Taurus. There's got to be something is going down as far as a very clear decision that you have to make when it comes to your work, when it comes to your health, or even when it comes to your day-to-day responsibilities. Okay, something new is going to be presenting itself. Now, it might not be totally brand new because the new moon can actually sort of culminate a situation that you've been trying to work on. Anything connected to your home, anything connected to your emotional stability, your emotional security, anything connected to family, you know, anything, your first family as well. Now, we have it working with this solar eclipse, right? And so whenever we're dealing with a solar eclipse, right, that solar, that sun, that focus, again, that ego consciousness, whenever something is eclipsed, it's eclipsed out. So something is leaving, right, in that sixth house of your health, of your day-to-day responsibilities, of that day-to-day environment, something connected to pets as well. Okay. And so the solar, though, is very connected to our joy, something that we have a lot of focus on. So before you get too scared, though, that eclipse energy, something's getting eclipsed out so that something can be eclipsed in. So it could just be I don't know you personally or what your personal birth chart would indicate, but it could be something that's negative that's being eclipsed out so that something positive can be eclipsed in. Again, it's happening in a Venus ruled energy. Venus is very connected as well to our money, our love, our sense of self, our self-esteem. But there is something that is changing in that arena. So some of you may be looking at some sort of health situation, either your own, it could also be of a pet, it could also be of a coworker, right? Because sixth house is also our coworkers as well as our employees. Okay. So those are some of the themes, right? That could certainly ultimately come up, but something new, and then something gets eclipsed out, so something gets eclipsed in. So there is this swapping out of energy. So some of you may be realizing that you want to once and for all change jobs. You want to change environments. You want to change the day-to-day way you actually run your life. Trying to create a little bit more balance, maybe if you've been feeling like things have been out of balance. These are some of the themes that could certainly come up. Now, a week later, not a couple of days later, that next Wednesday on October 9th, we're dealing with Jupiter going retrograde in Gemini. And that's happening in your second house. So the second house is the money you make from the work that you do, as well as your sense of self, your self-esteem, your possessions, things that matter to you. Jupiter is the great benefic. And in Gemini, what is he expanding, right? He's all about expansion. And Gemini is about expanding your ability to learn something new, your ability to communicate about money, your ability to feel much better about yourself. But when Jupiter goes retrograde in that space, you could feel a little misunderstood. Like you want to present yourself in a certain way, but you feel like it's not translating in the way that you would ultimately like, right? Where you could feel this lack of understanding. Maybe you're not feeling like things are going very lucky for you. Maybe you're just feeling like a lack of luck during this period when it comes to finances or when it just comes to your sense of self, right? That Jupiter, that fortuitous Jupiter energy, which is all about expansion, when it goes retrograde, there's this hiddenness about it, right? And so it ends up manifesting very internally. And in the sign of Gemini, which rules our mental faculties, we could be very much inside of our head regarding things having to do with our sense of self, how optimistic and positive we're feeling, how confident we're feeling, how good we're feeling about our money, and all of that. It's not going to last, but just understand that that's what's going to be going on throughout October. Now, on October 11th, Pluto does go direct in Capricorn. I'm very excited about this because even though it's at the 29th degree, it is in your ninth house. That 29th degree is that shadow manifestation of Capricorn, which could be quite controlling, very obsessed with it has to be this way and boundaries. And, this is the way I feel, right? And he's going to be in there direct for another month after, right? In the middle of November, he's going to be going finally into that 10th house Aquarius energy for you guys for the next 20 years in that, and that is an angular house that Pluto's moving into for you. So there are going to be big changes when it comes to your long-term plans, your career, your public reputation, your standing in the world, maybe the status of your marriage, your status in life, right? It's going to be going through a lot of transformation. But for now, in October, coming out of that retrograde, you've been within yourself, really trying to reason out and kind of focus out a little wider, right? Because that ninth house where Pluto is currently in Capricorn is in that very expansive ninth house energy. It's where Jupiter lives. Really looking at your beliefs, looking at your politics, your religion, higher education, higher mindedness, dealing with foreign land, foreign travel, maybe dealing with the idea of moving, dealing very much with father energy. Some of you could be dealing with some father energy there as well. Quite frankly, it could also be mother energy as well. So you have it in Capricorn. So, Sag and Capricorn, it's like the manifestation of parental energy, father, Sag, mother, Capricorn. And we're talking about manifestation. We're not talking about representation. I don't want to confuse you guys beyond that. But that Pluto energy at 29 degree in Capricorn leaving that ninth house, you might be wrapping something up with father, wrapping something up having to do with the energy of a second spouse, a grandfather, a brother-in-law, some sort of marketing campaign that you're involved in, some sort of advertising. Maybe you're looking to launch something. There could be some sort of launch of some sort of product or idea. Especially for those of you who do any kind of like writing or any kind of communicating. This is actually a really good energy to launch something in that way. Actually, I'm really liking that if you're in that space. But Pluto's a big deal, and we've just been talking about him in every video, just because he's a heavy player this month. For you got well, not just this month, but he's a heavy player for these, honestly, this next year and a half. It's going to be shaking up your eighth house, your 11th house for sure, your seventh house, as well as your what did I say? Seventh house, eighth house, 10th house, and 11th house. Those are going to be going through a lot of change and transformation over the next year and a half to 2 years. So it's very relationship oriented and very career oriented. So it's pretty big, right? 7, 8, and then we have 10 and 11. So those are going to be pretty big changes for you. But let's talk about Mercury going into Scorpio, and that's going to be on Sunday, October 13th. And that's happening in your let's see, where is it? Mercury going into your Scorpio energies in the seventh house. So yeah, I mean that energy is going to be really, really interesting because Mercury in Scorpio is very serious. It's very having the conversation about sex and intimacy and sharing and shared resources and shared ideas, especially with a significant other. Having the conversation having to do with money with your boss, if that's necessary. Sitting down and evaluating if what it is that you're putting your energy into, because your seventh house is also very connected to your energetic output at work. Sitting down and saying, am I doing what I really want to do as far as my energetic expenditure every day at work? Or do I want to change up how it is that I'm doing things, right? Because that is going to be one of the Plutonian impacted houses over the next year and a half to 2 years. Some of you may be getting a message from a doctor regarding some sort of health situation. It might even be some sort of circumstance that's very scorpionic, so something that's dealing with, your like gendered organs. And I'm just going to say it like that. So depending if you're male, female, whatever it is, having some sort of conversation about that, perhaps just needing to get some blood work done. These are some things that could certainly be coming up, getting messages, Mercury, having to do within that realm. Okay. Now, moving forward, we have Venus going into Sagittarius on Thursday, October 17th. Now, your Sagittarius energy falls in the eighth house. So Venus going into the eighth house is really, really good for finalizing any sort of legal situation, anything that you have to wrap up that has to do with like a divorce settlement, the finalization of some sort of insurance payout, some sort of inheritance situation, great energy to pay off debt, great energy to get some help. If you need help having to do with your finances, getting some sort of outside help. It is generally speaking a good energy for you to do any sort of investing. Yeah, I mean, I would say until the end of September, it would be a good energy to do any sort of investing in a business, investing in the stock market, anything like that. There could be now, for those of you sort of looking at it through a different lens, for those of you who are if you're going away on vacation, just like a little caveat, there could be some very steamy interaction, like in a very good, sexy way, with someone from a different culture, where it ends up getting more serious quicker than you even thought you wanted. This could certainly manifest like that. It's a very good energy to meet somebody from a foreign land or just from a different culture. Maybe you're already in that relationship and you guys are going to be leveling it up, or if you've been in that relationship for a long time, you may be making the decision to go your own ways, right? That's just the way the eighth house works. The eighth house is just about change and transformation, endings and beginnings. It's also very connected, though, to control and anxiety and the deep, deep past, right? So these are things that we need to talk about. I'm going to tell you something that can happen here when Venus goes into that eighth house energy, right? It's been in that Scorpio energy. Now it's going into Sagittarius. So either way, because Scorpio is the ruler of that eighth house as well. So when Venus is hanging with Scorpio, we want to be truth tellers. We want to tell people what's up. You know what I mean? Having to do with like where we're at when it comes to the relationship or how it is that we feel. I'm really sorry if I'm getting you dizzy. I'm just, my feet are wrapping up in my cords. I apologize. Um, but you're going to feel very open to have these conversations in relationship, and you're going to be in truth teller mode. There's no question about that. So you do just want to be a smidge careful, because with Black Moon Lilith, which she is in Virgo in that sixth house, when it comes to having a conversation about, shared responsibilities, the way something should be playing out, something like that, we want to make sure that we're not blaming out too much. Not that we're blaming ourselves for and everything, because that would not be the case, but just looking at our own responsibility in a situation, right? And looking at being honest with ourselves about, what maybe was avoidable from our end, and just being like a more of a vessel of empathy, and just trying to figure something out, okay? Just trying to figure things out in a very even-handed and open-minded way is really the way to go. The full moon is happening in Aries on Thursday, October 17th as well. So again, that Aries energy is in your 12th house. This is going to be very, very introspective for you. The full moon energy, emotions, something coming to your realization. Now, what happens in the 12th house between that and between Black Moon Lilith, which could be, again, this idea of our blind spot. These two are going to be in opposition. They're going to sort of have a little bit of a face off. Where do you blame out? Where might you be getting in your own way? Where might you be sabotaging your own health? Where might you be sabotaging your own daily responsibilities? And realizing this, and then saying, okay, I really want to work on this, right? I have to really look at my responsibility, even if it's just the choices that you've been making, and saying, I have the power to create change for myself by simply not allowing this, and this to continue. I don't know. I mean, obviously there is not everything that we could be proactive, in the short term having to do with, but we could certainly make plans to create changes where we can. I mean, sometimes for time periods we can't, right? It depends on what it is, but making changes where we can, I guess that would be more of the functional point. And that's what this full moon in Aries is really going to be bringing. Now, it is in the house of the hidden. So, and the house of things that are held back from us, right? So these realizations about a new path is going to be felt, a new way of wanting to be, a new way of doing things. But you are going to be in this space where it's like, but what does it mean? How do I access that? How do I get there? Be patient with yourself, because the full moon energy is going to bring up, kind of amplify this very strong desire for a new beginning, but the energies have to finish playing out over the next month. So don't be frustrated when you're feeling that. Just say, okay, I don't know what it means, but I have to be honest with myself and look at my life and look at where I can control things, what I can change, because I can't change anybody else. What can I change? And then just give the month a chance to roll out. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. Now, we have the sun going into Scorpio on the 22nd. So the sun going into your seventh house, that means the focus is going to be on relationships. And it's going to be focused on scorpionic type of relationship. Guys, this could be very, very sexy, very steamy. Because there's a lot of focus on, Scorpio does rule sex. Seventh house is very important relationships. Now, through another lens, though, this could also be deciding to change jobs. Some of you might be getting a job offer where you're going to be moving. Some of you may be, again, leaving something because you're more focused on your joy. Your joy is going to be more of a focus, right? That's going to be a thing for you. Now, with the sun in the seventh house, which is the glyph is the scales for the seventh house, and it is in the sign of Scorpio, and Scorpio is the landlord of the eighth house, which does rule like divorce settlements. It is any sort of legal settlement. So there could be a lot of focus on wrapping up some sort of legal situation, or not totally ending it, but getting your finalization, if that makes sense. Progression towards the end point is what's going to be happening. So if you've been waiting to sort of move to that next phase, move to that next level, I do see it happening at the end of October. And the last thing that I want to mention is on Saturday, October 26th, Vesta enters Libra. And Vesta is all about perseverance. And that Libra energy is in that sixth house of your health, of your day-to-day work environment, of your day-to-day responsibilities. So by the end of October, you will have gone through what's going to feel like a boatload of decision making. And it's going to be very heavy-headed all month. He's going to have some nice energy in there. I mean, you just are, with that Venus energy, you could have some really cool stuff come up in relationship, nice connection with the bosses, come up with some really good solutions having to do with work. All of these things, you're going to start to feel are finally coming together, but you're going to recognize at the end of the month that you are the common denominator in all of those things, and that the perseverance that maybe you've been struggling with Vesta going in there, Vesta's going to be in there to give you the energy under your wings to get stuff done and to create those changes that you might need to really work on that are very connected to these decisions that you had to make this month. So I hope this was helpful in some way. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in November. Take care, guys. Bye-bye. Hey, Gemini, I hope you're doing great. Welcome to October. So we're going to break out. I want to say like the 8 to 10 most important things that I see coming up for you guys. I want to start with Wednesday, with Wednesday, October 2nd. Wednesday, October 2nd, we have the new moon and the solar eclipse happening in the sign of Libra in your fifth house of falling in love, love affairs, romance, children, your creativity, your monetizable talent, your own business. Your joy, fifth house is your joy. That's where the sun lives with Leo, right? Just naturally in everyone's chart. But you have the sign of Libra there. Now check it out. That day, it's not only that's where we're not only dealing with like the moon and the sun in there. We have Juno. We have the moon. Let me just say, because I'm looking at your chart here. We have Juno, we have Vulcan, we have the moon, we have Mercury, we have Black Moon Lilith, we have Estrella, we have the sun, we have the South Node. So the South Node is what do we need to let go of? It's working with the sun. So the sun is focus. The sun is very exalted in the fifth house because it's where it naturally lives in everyone's chart. And so in the sign of Libra, I mean, there could be a lot of lovely energy for those of you who are looking to meet someone new. Very nice energy, but it's also working within 1 degree of Estrella. And Estrella is like, what do you have to stop doing, Gem? What do you have to let go of in that arena? So this might even be something connected to your children, especially your oldest. Like there's something that's got to be let go of. There's a release between Estrella and the South Node sandwiching the sun in that fifth house. There's got to be this letting go of something connected to either your children, a relationship, a business that you have, because you're self-sabotaging somewhere because it's also in there with Black Moon Lilith. We have Black Moon Lilith dancing just that day alone between 10 degrees and 11 degrees, having to do with Estrella, Black Moon Lilith, and Mercury, and even the sun. Those four energies are like on each other's laps. Black Moon Lilith is your blind spot. When it's in Libra, there's something that you're either allowing to continue happening in relationship that you should not be, or you're acting in a way that is maybe not so great for the relationship. Now, that could be with a significant other. It could be with one of your children. It could be the way that you're handling a business. It could be the way that you're handling even an old friend. There's something that you have to see that you're doing as well, right? Because Libra is the landlord of the seventh house. And whenever we're talking about seventh house anything, there's a mirroring effect that ends up going. So we might be recognizing that somebody is being screwed up and they better stop doing this, da, da, da. Where are you either again allowing, because you might not actually be cognizant of doing anything, wrong, and you're like, no, I'm really not doing anything. Maybe though, what you're doing wrong is allowing something to continue. and not addressing something. But we do have to be careful with how we're speaking because it's in an exact conjunction to Mercury in that Libra energy in the fifth house as well. So we don't want to burn any bridges. We want to have open, even scales, Libra, even conversation about our moon emotions. Moon is in there as well, about what needs to end. Vulcan. Vulcan is about bringing something down to the ground. We're not looking to reformulate that. We're not looking to revamp it. It's Vulcan. It's not Pluto. Vulcan is like burn that bitch down to the ground, go down the block and rebuild it in a different way. So this is the kind of thing where it's going to be like, stop doing that. I need to stop doing this, and we're going to take on a whole new approach on how we're doing this. So you might be rethinking how you do relationship with a significant other, with your kids, with your own joy and your own happiness. You may be like, okay. I am not really serving my own joy and happiness. I'm not putting enough energy into things that I love. I'm not, and really recognizing these things and saying, I'm not going to allow it anymore because it's also working with Juno. And Juno, yes, it's very connected to marriage. It's very connected to marriage, right? But it's also very connected to like, what are we willing to be totally committed to? And in that fifth house, it's got to be your joy at a certain point. You can't forget to remember yourself. You just can't. And so all of those energies, it's all fifth house stuff. Whoa. And on the second, that new moon and that solar eclipse is going to be like, what's going to be realized, what's leaving, and what's coming in. And it's all connected to that Libra energy. Libra is very connected to parenting, very connected to love, very connected to money. It depends on what's going on in your personal chart. But these are the themes having to do with your own business, relationship, the connection with your children, maybe a little bit of each of those. But those are the themes that are going to be kicking off the month for you. Now, on October 9th, 1 week later, on Wednesday, October 9th, Jupiter is going to be going retrograde in your sign, in that first house, in that energy. Okay, so this is the thing. You're going to be looking at the path that you're on and you're going to be like, man, this isn't how I wanted it to go. I feel so misunderstood. I know I wanted it this way, but why is it coming out this way? Why don't I feel understood? It's like, and it's not like you're losing faith. You're not losing faith in humanity. You're not losing faith in yourself. You're not losing faith in the path that you're on. You're not, but it's like there's going to be this lack of fortuitous energy that you're going to be tapping into because that's what happens when Jupiter goes retrograde. He is typically all about expansiveness and positive and all that, right? But when he goes retrograde, he's inverted. It's within you. So it's kind of hidden away. So that energy of growth and expansion and that fortuitous energy can be held back. You feel like people don't really understand what it is that you're trying to get across. They don't understand your politics, your religion. Those are all Jupiterian things. You want to get something out there, you want to launch, but people aren't really understanding you the way that you want. It almost sounds like I'm speaking about Mercury retrograde, but I'm not. But it's a Mercury ruled house and it's Jupiter retrograde, which ends up, pulling you forward. Okay. Jupiter retrograde can also bring about issues in communication or even thinking when we're dealing with foreign land, foreign travel, anything like that. It could end up screwing up travel plans. It can end up creating some sort of snafus in relation in conversation. If you are speaking with somebody who is either at a distance or somebody who's very different than you, don't sweat it because it's not going to be a terribly long transit. You're only going to be dealing with it for several weeks, okay? But it's going to be real and you're going to be feeling it in that energy. Friday, October 13th, Pluto goes direct in Capricorn. It is at 29 degrees, and that Capricorn energy is in your eighth house. So it's time to just wrap that thing up. What are you wrapping up, Gemini? What eighth house thing are you wrapping up? So are you finalizing that inheritance, that insurance payout, that settlement that's got some sort of dollar amount? Are you focused on paying off debt, taxes? Are you focused on wrapping up some sort of situation having to do with somebody else's money? Are you making a decision to get a divorce? Are you finally deciding to get married? Are you wrapping up some situation pertaining to maybe you're going to adopt, or maybe you're making a final decision to have a child or don't have a child? You might even be wrapping up some sort of circumstances that are connected to any sort of investment as well, right? That's that Pluto energy. But you're thinking very Capricorn. You're thinking very long term. You're thinking about strategies that are going to help you have very clear boundaries, thinking about the responsibility. You're going to have 1 month of that, 1 month. And then 1 month later, in the middle of November, that Pluto energy, boop, goes into your ninth house. Much better house to have Pluto transiting for the next 20 years, in my opinion. In my opinion. Because the angular houses 1, 4, 7, and 10, they're tricky because that's when stuff's really got to be going on. Stuff's happening. Things are happening in our lives, right? Out in the 3D. And then, the next house, that eighth house, that 11th house, that second house, those are the succeeding houses. That's when the change happened, and now we're sort of living with those changes. But now it's going into a Caden house. And so a Caden house is sort of in between all of those things. It's like you're going to be going into an energy where you're really creating a very new experience for yourself. I mean, expect this over the next 20 years. Your religion, your politics, your belief system, what it is that you learn, where you travel, how you expand yourself is all going to be in a very different space, right? Seventh house, ninth house energy is also very connected to father energy, right? But that's once that Pluto moves into that Aquarius in the middle of November. But for this month, he's staying at that very critical 29th degree just for the next month to clean things up. He's been there since 2008, and he's like, time to close this thing up, this eighth house thing up. Now, we also have on Sunday, October 13th, Mercury goes into Scorpio. So that Scorpio energy is in your sixth house. Scorpio lives in the eighth house. So, naturally, so those energies are sextiling. So Scorpio in the sixth house, Mercury is very much about communicating in the way that you think, and Scorpio is very controlling, very serious, very truthful, very honest, wants to just rip the top off of something. And you're going to be now Mercury going into that energy. The sixth house is your house of health, mental, physical, emotional. It's your daily work environment. It's your colleagues. It's people who work for you. It's your daily responsibilities. So Mercury in there, you could be like, kind of in the space where it's like, okay, I have to get very serious about my day-to-day responsibilities and how I structure them, and trying to create some sort of better balance for myself. A lot of you are going to be doing some learning about a health-related issue, you might be going to doctors, or maybe you went to doctors already, you got some sort of information, and you really you're putting it into practice, and you'll be very serious about it. It's like, no, I'm creating change here. I'm going to create good change for myself here. I'm going to get very serious about what it is that I'm doing. Or you might be saying the same thing. No, I'm going to get very serious now about what's going on in my day-to-day work environment. I'm going to get very serious about a sixth house issue. Get very serious about a situation that's going on with a pet, where it's like, oh man, I've been a little scattered, I've been kind of all over the place, whatever. I'm going to get very serious here, right? Because that's what that Mercury energy in Scorpio does. Now, on the 17th, which is a Thursday, Venus goes into Sagittarius in your seventh house, right? That's marriage, significant partnerships, bosses, also energetic output. Because it's in Sagittarius, man, I love this for any of you who work within the realm of communication and/or writing, do anything having to do with foreign land, foreign travel. If you have anything to do with marketing, advertising, anything like that, importing and exporting, beautiful energy there. Beautiful. This is also such a nice energy to meet someone new from a foreign land, a foreign travel, to do business with someone from a foreign land. So good to sign some sort of contract or to get some sort of situation going. Maybe you signed the contract already and you're going to be getting into the 3D aspects of it. We're really beautiful there. Very nice energy. Now, the full moon in Aries is happening on Thursday, October 17th, that same day. But that Aries energy is in your 11th house of goals and gains. Now, remember, full moons bring something to fruition. Aries is all about fresh path, new perspective. So that 11th house energy, it really does speak to not only our goals and gains, but it really does speak to like the next 10 to 15 years and something new and novel coming in. So between that Venus and Sagittarius in that seventh house, trining your 11th house, I love this for you guys to get into doing something with a different perspective, having to do with either a relationship or work that's going to end up impacting the next 10 to 15 years of your life. It's working with the North Node, it's working with Chiron, it's going to be healing. I really like this for you guys, okay? Bringing something to fruition here. Realization at the very least. Very nice energy here. And I have to tell you, I feel like for a lot of you, you're going to be meeting people who are going to be able to help you more along your path, if that makes sense, as the next couple of years roll out. Tuesday, October 22nd, we do have the sun moving into Scorpio, so it's going to be happy birthday to our Scorpio friends. And so the focus then, Gem, is going to end up being on sixth house matters. So there's going to be a lot of focus on your health, a lot of focus on your day-to-day work environment, focus on your day-to-day responsibilities, right? That's going to be the focus is on the day-to-day. Now, doesn't mean you're not going to be thinking about the future, but your day-to-day is going to be very busy. There's going to be a lot of focus there right now. We have Vesta entering Libra. This is the last point I really want to discuss. Love this energy. Saturday, October 26th, Vesta is going into Libra. Libra is in your fifth house of joy, and Vesta is all about perseverance. What are you willing to be in a space of like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Fifth house energy, monetizable talents. I'm going to build my business up. I'm going to start that business. I'm going to write that book. I'm going to write that screenplay. I'm going to open myself to be a little different in relationship. I want to create more friendships in my life. And you being very, like, I'm going to say serious, but very like, no, I want to do this. And Vesta is going to give you all of the energy that you need for it. So I do have to tell you, while the energy is still going to be wonkadoo, it is just is till Pluto settles in to that Aquarius energy, which is not going to start until the middle of November. Things are still going to be up in the air, but everything's going to have a better vibe about it. It's just going to be like a smidge more optimistic. And can't we all use a little bit of that? Hey, why not? I'll take it. I don't know about you. All right, my friends. So hopefully this was helpful in some way. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. And I will see you guys in November. Bye-bye. Cancer, I hope you guys are doing great. Welcome to October. So I'm going to break down what I think are the 8 most important things for you to understand this month. We're going to start with October 1st. October 1st, we have that new moon and that solar eclipse in the sign of Libra in your 4th house of home, property, real estate, your first family. Okay, 4th house is your first family that you grew up with, the family that you're living with now. It also, in a less tangible way, it deals with your emotional stability, your inner base of operations, and just that, okay, I feel safe kind of energy. So with the new moon, there's always realizations. There's always a light being shed on something new, right? That we haven't been able to quite see up to this point. And the solar eclipse, right, is very connected to this eclipsing out of something that's connected to our long-term plans. It's very connected to our ultimate joy and happiness. Solar eclipse could also be something connected to our children, a romantic relationship, or even a business. And in the sign of Libra, Libra is very connected to parenting, love and romance. It's also connected to money. But keep in mind, and I don't want you to be afraid of this because something gets eclipsed out so that something else can be eclipsed in. happen. So there is some sort of change going on there in that fourth house energy. But the more important thing, guys, is what is happening in that fourth house. It is so not just that new moon and that solar eclipse in Libra in the fourth. We have working with it. And I will break this down. You have Juno, you have Vulcan. I'm looking at your chart. Juno, Vulcan, the moon, Mercury, black moon, Lilith, Estrella, the sun, and the south node. Everybody's having a party in your fourth house. So let's kind of bring these all together. Juno has to do with your marriage. It has to do with what are you absolutely committed to. You might not be married. It doesn't even have to be a relationship. But how committed are you to staying in that home? How committed are you to working from home? How committed are you to that property, real estate, family situation? Vulcan is about recognizing that something's got to end. And I don't mean like, I'm going to change it. No, no, no. It's got to end. And then there's going to be some sort of new situation coming in. The moon obviously is very connected to your emotions, very exalted in the fourth house because that's where the moon lives naturally. Then we have Mercury, which has to do with your mental realm, the way you communicate and think. Black moon Lilith is your blind spot. There's some sort of blind spot that you have when it comes to relationship or when it comes to your finances or what's possible. There's something that you're not seeing. We do want to make sure with Black Moon Lilith that we're not blaming everybody else around, that we're not blaming our family, or we're not blaming the person that we're in relationship if things are a certain way. Doesn't mean that they're not acting messy. But what happens in the sign, and whenever anything happens in the sign of Libra, we have to understand that Libra is a sign of mirroring. So even though you may recognize that someone or some sort of situation is a certain way, you don't want to place complete blame. You have to look at your responsibility in the situation, even if it's simply allowing something to continue. Now, this could be a very strong resonance for those of you, especially those of you who work from home, because Libra is very connected to our boss, our bosses, as well as our energetic output at work. And because this is happening in our fourth house, if you're working at home from home, you can have these experiences, right? So things could be coming up, but now let this be just like a call to recognize that maybe something needs some changing here. It's also working with Estrella, and Estrella is recognition that something it's way past the expiration date. It's time for something to be considered more seriously in the realm of change. Now, because it's also working and these are very, very close together, by the way. They're like 10, 11 degrees. And when I say Mercury, Black Moon, Lilith, Estrella, and the moon are all like on each other's laps. And this Estrella is like, what am I not letting go of? What do I'm holding on to something that I need to let go of and then it's working with the sun, and the sun is about your joy, your focus. It has to do with romance, your joy, that business, that relationship, whatever it is. It's also working with the south node. So something needs to be released. So it's not just that the eclipse is there, guys. It's also that Vulcan is in there, that the south node is in there. Australia is in there. You have all of these other supporting energies that are like, something's got to happen. Something's got to change. Now, again, depending where you're at, some of you might be like, I can't work from home anymore, or I still want to work from home, but I want a different job from home, or I want to move from this environment, or I want to move out of this relationship, or there being just some sort of organic change within the family environment, right? Something's getting eclipsed out and something's coming in, that full moon energy. Maybe a new baby is joining the family, a new member is joining the family. Maybe there's been a marriage or there's been some joining of forces. You get the idea, right? I want to just give you the themes, and then you're going to apply it to your life as you see fit. Let's go 1 week after that. On October 9th, we have Jupiter goes retrograde in the sign of Gemini. And so that Gemini energy is in your 12th house. It's a very private house. It's very behind the scenes. It's also very connected, though, to behind the scenes creativity. When we write a book, or if we're doing something very creative like that, or if we're trying to plan our life, I know that sounds like a big loaded statement, but where you're maybe like behind the scenes, maybe you're looking for a job, or you're trying to write a curriculum, or you're trying to get training, right, in your spare time, anything like that. you could feel like things slow down. You could feel when Jupiter goes retrograde in the 12th house, especially in Gemini, you could feel like your creativity is blocked. Like you just can't figure something out. It's not going to last. It's absolutely not going to last. And you do want to avoid, because whenever Jupiter is in the 12th house, you want to watch out for feeling like a victimized behavior, any sort of victim behavior. Um, any sort of challenges like that. Now, the Jupiter energy in the 12th house, which also happens to be the house of the nurse, some of you may be going through a month where you feel really, really open to the idea of helping out. So maybe you're helping out a sibling, maybe you're helping out one of your kids, maybe you're helping out a parent even. And you just feel very comfortable with that, where you're sort of behind the scenes as a great support system for somebody who's very close to you. That could certainly be happening there as well. You might just be a really solid shoulder to lean on for somebody in your life as well. Let's go on to Friday, October 11th. Pluto goes direct in Capricorn. That Capricorn energy is in your seventh house of marriage partnership, your bosses. It has to do with your energetic output at work. Pluto's been in your eighth house, in your seventh house rather, since 2008. He's been doing this little dance that we've been talking about between Capricorn and Aquarius for about, it's not 2 years, it's about a year and a half. Since last March, not this past March, but the March before. That's when like the dance really started. But now what's happening is we're in the last leg of the last stretch here, last leg of the race. 29 degrees is the shadow manifestation of Capricorn in that seventh house. And what is Capricorn? It has to do with boundaries, responsibilities, long-term plans, the status of things, how well you are known, right? So it is very connected to your reputation. How are you known right now? So there's this realization that something's going to be changing. Okay. So you might be deciding to get married. You might be deciding to get divorced. You might be deciding to move in. You might be moving, because that Pluto energy going into Scorpio. Scorpio is can be but let me be very clear here. It would be moving for work, only for work, okay? Having the opportunity to move for work. Or realizing that you need to move for work. It could even be that for sure. Getting the idea that it's time for you to leave that job. You're not resonating with that boss or group of bosses anymore. Or you really resonate with them and you're very happy in your relationship and all of that, but you're realizing that what you do as far as your energetic expenditure at work, when you go into work, you want to do something different. You may be feeling very underwhelmed and you want to change the angle through which you're looking at life and work and all of that stuff. So trust me with that, like that's going to be happening anyway, my friends. It's all going to be very good for you moving into that space, because finally getting out of that seventh house. The angular houses are difficult to have Pluto transit. Because angular houses stuff has to get done in the 3D. And if you don't do it, Pluto will make sure that it's done for you. So that's that kind of energy. But now it's going to be going into a succeeding house, the eighth house. Not that the eighth house is such like a light and airy house. It's actually quite serious, but it's very financial. So Pluto energy in the eighth house, some of you could be gaining some sort of inheritance, insurance payout, positive investments. We do want to be careful though, depending on what else is going on in your chart. You don't want to accrue debt. You don't want to accrue a lot of like taxes owed. This could be very good if you haven't been very fortuitous when it comes to the stock market or investments, or maybe you've never done it before and you want to get into it. This would not be a bad month to really start doing that research, right? About how it is that you can end up growing your money, on the other side. Keep in mind that Pluto is going to be going into the Aquarius energy in the eighth house, where he is the most comfortable out of all of the houses, because he natally, naturally lives in everyone's eighth house with Scorpio. It's where he lives. He's home, right? And I've been saying that for a while. So I feel like for a lot of you, there's going to be a lot of change there. A lot of you are going to be experiencing intimacy differently. You're going to be experiencing shared life, shared goals. So some of you, again, are going to be divorcing. Some of you are going to be getting married. It depends on the situation. Some of you may be getting divorced and then getting married, to somebody else. And it's also pretty common with that Pluto energy, believe it or not, in the eighth house for people to get divorced and then get remarried. So yeah, there is that. But also to get divorced and remarried, but then not live together. Like that is so Pluto and Aquarius, right? Where it's like we have the commitment and we're here, but like I'm gonna live across town, right? Or I'm gonna live next door, or I'm gonna live down the block, whatever it is, right? Not unusual, right? We are absolutely entering a stage in humanity where that is more common and more accepted than ever before. It seems strange to some people, but it works for other people. Now, we also have Mercury going into that Scorpio energy. So Mercury going into Scorpio in that fifth house is going to be a lot more serious. Mercury in Scorpio is the conversation is more serious. It's very honest, it's very truthful. There could be a sitting down with your children and being very heartfelt and honest with them, a significant other, sitting down with yourself even and being really honest about how it is that you feel about your business or what it is that you feel like you need to be happy. And there is this sitting down and getting very serious about something and addressing something like head on. And I actually think it's a super healthy energy. I'm thinking for you guys. Now on the 17th, which is a Thursday, Venus goes into Sagittarius, which happens to be in your sixth house. So sixth house energy, Venus in the sixth can bring a new job opportunity. You might be meeting somebody, meeting a new romantic connection at work. Quite frankly, this could even be like meeting somebody in the vegetable aisle at the supermarket or at the dry cleaner when you go, because the sixth house is very connected to like our daily responsibilities and things we do on the day to day. And Venus is connected to love. It is connected, though, also to money. So there can be this again, just looking at the themes, a new job, a raise. You could be getting a raise. You could be feeling better about how it is that you're handling your work. It could, certainly be this type of manifestation. Nice energy there. Venus in the sixth house is excellent for your health as well. If you've been going through any sort of challenges, Venus in the sixth in the sign of Sagittarius brings many blessings. And that's the important thing you have to remember, because your sixth house is ruled by Jupiter. So, and Jupiter brings Jupiterian blessings. And when it comes to Sagittarius, God is on your side. It's God, it's the law, legalities, local governance. It has to do with publishing, marketing, advertising, higher education, higher mindedness, religion, organized or otherwise as well. All of these types of energies as well. Now, I do want to say that what it can also bring, because Sagittarius is very connected to the manifestation of father energy, and Venus is in there, and Venus is very much about love and caretaking. It's very connected to parental energy, and Sagittarius is father energy, and the sixth house is day-to-day responsibilities. Some of you may feel that you're more responsible for a father energy suddenly, and or feeling more responsible for the energy of a second spouse that you might have. Okay, I just wanted to say that. And that's going to be to a lesser degree, but I'm certain that some of you are going to resonate with that. Now, on the 17th, we have the full moon in Aries. Aries energy is happening in the 10th house of career, public reputation, standing in the world. Now, this full moon is not just happening by itself. It is happening with the North Node, and it's also happening with Chiron. So this full moon is going to be very emotional in that Aries energy opposing the fourth house, which is where the moon naturally lives, right? So there can be some like a tugging of the heart when it comes to some sort of family situation, realizing something when it comes to some sort of family situation, but it's somehow also going to be connected to your career. and your public reputation. You're standing in the world. So maybe you're realizing that maybe you have to move away from work, or you're realizing that it's time to end the status of a marriage, right? Because 10th house is also status of a marriage. And when we're having a full moon in Aries, which is very connected to fresh path, new perspective, it's like, all right, what is this next chapter of my life going to look like? And there could be this bittersweet kind of thing where it's time for me to move out. It's time for me to move away. It's time for me to do something different. It's time, for that period in that chapter to start ending. But this is the thing, guys. I want you to understand it's going to end up being ultimately more positive for you than not. And I know it's difficult because we're in this what feels like an extended season of waiting for a shoe to drop. It's like, what else is going to happen now, for goodness sake? Come on now. But this is where it's going to start. This October is very different. I mean, there's a crossing of the threshold into a much more optimistic energy, even though October, November are going to be bananas still, because we're still in the tornado of it all. So we're not feeling grounded, but there is going to be this essence of everything's going to be okay. Everything is actually going to be okay. Where a lot of energies weren't feeling like that, up to this point. So we really want to sort of, grab at that. But again, themes, full moon realization, 10th house. You're really looking at your career, your status of your marriage, your long-term goals, and you're realizing stuff in this energy because it's in Aries, and Aries is fresh path, new perspective. You're not playing around anymore. Now, the sun is going to be going into Scorpio a couple of days later on the 22nd, on Tuesday, the 22nd, and that Scorpio energy in your fifth house, the focus is going to be your kids. It's going to be a job, meaning your own business, monetizable talents. There could be a lot of focus. Some of you, maybe, I hope, you just go on a vacation because fifth house is vacations as well. But a lot of you are going to be very focused on, and again, because it is in, the focus is going to be on the fifth house, but because it's in Scorpio, endings and beginnings, change and transformation. So some of you might be like, sit down, let's get serious and talk about that baby, that marriage, that divorce, that whatever it is, right? But you're going to be in a very nice space to have the conversation. Very nice space to have the conversation. I don't know, it's like something's changing. It's been really uncomfortable throughout the change, but the way the energies are rolling out in October, you're going to move into a greater sense of acceptance, if that makes sense. Now, the last thing I want to mention is Vesta entering Libra, and that's happening on Saturday, October 26th. And Vesta is all about perseverance. And that Libra energy, right? I mean, I spoke about everyone who's in Libra when I spoke about that new moon and solar eclipse on the 2nd. So we're throwing some energy of perseverance into that. So the perseverance could be not giving up on trying to get that new job working from home, not giving up on where it is that you're living or the situation that's going on within your home environment, or having to do with your child, or having to do with that family member. The perseverance is what's needed to not give up. And Vesta is going to be there in spades at the end of the month to help, with that very important fourth house energy. Things are changing, but you're going to have perseverance to actually see things through. So try to be as optimistic as you possibly can. There are better times coming. I do promise you that, at least in the short term, but we have to go through these changes of October and November, which is just like a little wonky, but then things a little at a time. It's just stepping into a whole new normal, and it's going to be a nice change, even if it's scary. Okay, my friends, I hope that was helpful in some way. Thanks for hanging with me, and I'll see you in November. Bye-bye. Leo, I hope you guys are doing amazing. Happy October. I can't believe we're in October already. So there are 8 main things that I want to unpack for you guys, and we're going to start with the new moon and solar eclipse in Libra, and that's on October 2nd. This is happening in your 3rd house of communication and mental realm. Your ability to learn things, learn something new. It's very connected to communication, though. All modes of communication. 3rd house is also very connected to writing, communicating, public speaking. It's learning something new, right, from the ground up. Now, it is happening in the sign of Libra, so this could be all of this could be very connected to your marriage, could be very connected to your job. It could be very connected to your energetic output that you put into your work. So maybe, you do something for work, but you're realizing, you know what, I want to level up my skill set. Maybe I'll take this workshop. Or it's really not about going back to formal schooling, but it's more about let me think about something different and maybe take some sort of class or something like that. This could also be very connected to you strategizing the way in which you communicate. And let me explain something. We have the new moon and we have the solar eclipse, both of those energies in Libra. So let's look at that for a second. The new moon is all about realizations. Okay? New moon energy. Now, it happens, it's a watery energy, but it's in an air house. The house is run by an air energy, Gemini. You have an air energy, Libra, in there. So there's a lot of mental realm. You're doing a lot of thinking, a lot of up here, very cerebral stuff about your emotions, new things that you're learning, that you're realizing. You're realizing things about how you were raised. You're realizing things. Your eyes are wide open, having to do with what you've been dealing with in some sort of family situation, some sort of home situation. So everything is very like eyes wide open, right? With this new moon energy having to do with that relationship, even that job, right? Realizing what it is that you want to do. But it is working with the solar eclipse in Libra. Something gets eclipsed out to be eclipsed back in. So that solar is very connected to your ego consciousness. It's very connected to your career. It's very connected to your children and your joy. And in that Libra energy, again, Libra is very Venusian. So anything that you feel like you need to move forward, so money. So solar eclipse in Libra, they could be a way making money gets eclipsed out, something going on with your children gets eclipsed out, something going on with the relationship gets eclipsed out, so that something can get eclipsed in. So there's this realization, eclipse out, eclipse in. Realization, ending something, bringing something in. Okay? Now, that's just that. Let's talk about what's going on in your third house. There is such a party going on in your third house. We have Juno, Vulcan, the moon, Mercury, Black Moon Lilith, Astraea, the sun, and the south node. Wow. All in the third house. So if your mind feels it's because you have so many energies in there. Because when so many energies in there, no one has any elbow room to do anything. Okay. So let's just do a quick run through. Juno, very connected to commitment, very connected to marriage, but not only marriage. What is it that you're connected to and committed to? Vulcan says, you know what? Take that idea. It's only 2 degrees away. You got to bring it down to the ground because the way that it's been is no good. That's working with the moon energy within 1 degree. Your moon is your emotions. It's your emotional stability. It's how you feel. It's very connected to your home environment, your inner base of operations. Now we're going to take it from this emotional level, very emotional, feeling like, yes, something needs to end. Now we're going to level it up to Mercury. Mercury is only 3 degrees away, okay? And Mercury is very exalted in the third house because that Mercury energy rules the third. And it's very connected to now communicating what these emotions are that you're experiencing. That Black Moon Lilith in the sign of Libra, it's an energy of mirroring. So you can be recognizing what somebody else is doing, but a good way of working Mercury and Black Moon Lilith is also realizing and expressing where maybe you need to make some improvements as well, in addition to them, right? It's about fairness. You get more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. You know what I mean? Like is that what bees with honey than with vinegar, whatever it is. You know what I mean? So being very fair-minded, but something is done, right? Because it's working with Astraea. And Astraea is recognizing that you stayed in something way past the expiration date. Even if it's that you've been allowing yourself to think a certain way because it is in the third house, the way you think, thinking a certain way for too long. And it's like, I cannot keep doing that. It's working with the sun. The sun is all about focus, as well as the south node was about, okay, come on, it's time to let go of something. So there is going to be the swapping out of energies in the realm of communication for you, in the realm of realizing that it's time to learn something new. It's time to talk differently, think differently, right? Really strategizing now in a way that is fair. Fairness is important, especially with Black Moon Lilith. You don't want to create any negative karma for yourself. You just want to be careful of that, especially because Jupiter is going to be creating a little bit of movement that next week, 1 week later, on Wednesday, October 9th, Jupiter is going to be going retrograde in the sign of Gemini. And Gemini actually rules that third house energy. But Gemini is in your 11th house and is going to be going retrograde. And the 11th house has to do with goals and gains and friends and groups and any sort of group work. It has to do with like the masses, sort of society at large, I suppose, like out there. Also very connected to daughter-in-laws, son-in-laws, grandchildren, stepchildren, older siblings are also found in that space. And so when Jupiter goes retrograde, we could feel less lucky. We could feel misunderstood. We could feel like when Jupiter goes retrograde in Gemini in the 11th, we could feel very nervous about our financial future. Am I going to have enough money to retire? Am I going to have enough money on the other side of this? Again, it's retrograde. And when he goes direct again in a month, you'll be feeling a little better about things. But he goes retrograde to sort of bring you introspective in order to plan. So you want to figure out, this is a time to strategize. How am I going to work out the next 10 to 15 years of my life? And you don't have to come up with all the answers right away. It's just thinking very pragmatically about these things. And this is definitely one of the themes that you're going to be dealing with around October 9th throughout the rest of the month into the second week of November. Now, on Friday, October 11th, Pluto does go direct in the sign of Capricorn, and Capricorn is in your 6th house. So this could be the manifestation or finally the culmination of something, some sort of health situation that you've been nursing coming to the forefront, some sort of situation having to do with work, some situation having to do with your daily responsibilities. They could be some sort of culmination, because this is the last time in your lifetime Pluto is ever going to be going direct in the sign of Capricorn in your 6th house. You're literally never going to have this again. It's not going to happen for another few hundred years. Okay. So, making a decision about work, about a health situation, or even about your daily responsibilities. Now, because Pluto is something that is connected to money in that it's shared resources, really looking at and trying to reconfigure, how can I have my daily responsibilities in an effective way, carry out my daily responsibilities in an effective way. If there were to be a change in my finances, if there were to be a change in my marital status, if there were to be a change in my living environment, if there were to be a change in my health, what would all of that look like? And that's really what's going to be happening. Now, it's only going to be there for 1 more month. And then 1 more month later, Pluto will be making that final transit into your 7th house for the next 20 years. And Pluto makes big changes, especially when he enters a house. So some of you may be in very precarious situations when it comes to your marriage, when it comes to your job. Pluto is going to go in and create changes. Now, what those changes look like will be a little different for each of you because you all have your own chart. Remember, this is for the archetype of Leo, particularly Leo rising, to a lesser degree, sun and moon. You always want to check first and foremost for that rising sign, because that is what indicates your house placements. Now, Mercury goes into Scorpio on Sunday, October 13th, and that Scorpio energy is very intense. It's very serious. It's in your 4th house. And so Venus is in there with Mercury just for a few days, like 4 days. So it could be a very serious conversation in the home environment having to do with an important relationship. It doesn't necessarily have to only be a significant other. It could also be with your children. It could also be have to do with property and real estate. It could have to do with a parent as well. But this serious conversation about moving, about change, about something ending so that there could be some sort of new beginning. Okay. But there's going to be I mean, there's just no doubt about it. Mercury is very serious in there, having a conversation about changes. Now, because Scorpio does rule this idea of also moving for work, and this is happening in the fourth house of where it is that you live now, there could be some sort of open conversation having to do with that, if that is something that resonates with you. Now, Venus goes into Sagittarius on Thursday, October 17th, and that's in the fifth house of falling in love, love affairs, romance, monetizable talents. Love this energy for marketing or advertising or trying to get anything out there to the world, having to do with your own business, having to do with any sort of creative project that you did, really feeling at home in some sort of creative project. This is an excellent energy to meet somebody, especially someone who's different than you. Foreign land, foreign travel, especially, I mean, this is going very specific, but the fifth house is very connected to vacations, and Sagittarius has to do with foreign lands, and Venus is about love. So this could be going away to a foreign land and falling in love and meeting somebody. This could also indicate that maybe you're actually doing business with someone from a foreign land or a foreign entity. It could have to do with importing and exporting. It could have to do with anything in the entertainment industry, right? Because the fifth house is very connected to the entertainer. Anything that's creative, really, really nice energy there. But you get the idea there. Now, the full moon, very nice though for meeting somebody new. Full moon in Aries energy is happening on October 17th, and that is a Thursday. Aries energy is in your ninth house. So when we have a full moon in the ninth house, there is so much that's realized about our belief system and where it is that we want to go and learning something. Something gets discovered in full moon energy. So, and in the ninth house, that ninth house energy has to do with the manifestation of father energy, foreign land, foreign travel, higher education, higher mindedness, religion, organized or otherwise, politics, law, legalities, local governance, all of these things. And the full moon is this realization. But this is the thing, because it's in Aries, whatever you're realizing is taking you onto a new path. There's a shift because Aries is about fresh path, new perspective. It's very focused on leadership energy. Okay, so some of you might even be starting some sort of lawsuit. Maybe you're connecting with somebody in a foreign land, foreign situation. But again, it's this fullness. The fullness is something's been cooking and now it comes up to be looked at. Okay. Now we also have the sun going into Scorpio, so it's going to be a happy birthday to our Scorpio friends on October 22nd, and that's going to be in your fourth house. So the focus is going to be very fourth house for the next month. Is going to be focused on property, real estate, family matters, if you're working from home, anything like that. It could have to do with also Scorpio is very connected to inheritances. Fourth house is connected, very connected because it's Luna. It's mother energy too. So there could be some sort of inheritance having to do with a mother or some sort of focus around mother energy as well. A lot of focus on that for the next month. And the last thing that I want to mention is Vesta going into Libra. Vesta is such a beautiful energy because she's all about perseverance. And when we have her going into that Libra energy in your third house of learning something, of communicating, of doing business as, connected to your siblings, your extended family, the way you think, the way you communicate, whatever it is, you are so committed. You're going to be so committed at the end of the month. Like, I'm going to persevere in this. I am doing this. That Vesta energy in there with Juno, it's like, yeah, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I've been nervous maybe up to now to write that book, to, write that screenplay, to start that YouTube channel, to have that conversation about work, to call my sibling after all this time, to call that old friend. I've been scared to take that course, whatever it is, okay? Learning something new. It's like, nope, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. In the end of the month, the energy is there for the taking. Now, part of the human condition is choice. You can choose to sit it out, but the energy is going to be there for the taking, my friends. And I really like it for you. Leo, I know you've had a lot going on. It's not easy having Saturn in the eighth house. It's not easy having Pluto cusp between the sixth and seventh house. That could be like a wonkadoo energy for sure. Your belief system kind of gets beat up the past couple of years. Your sense of self could get a little beat up. weird stuff going on with relationships and like even your job, you know? Yeah, for sure. But things are going to start changing in a different direction. Okay. But this is a month of decisions, though. I mean, the eclipse is bright, like the need for decision. And if you don't make the decisions, the eclipse will make it for you, right? So this is just something that you're going to need to be, you're going to need to be mindful of. All right, my friend. So I hope this was helpful in some way. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I'll see you for November or in November. Bye-bye. Virgo, I hope you're doing great. So I'm going to do a rundown of the month of October for you and the 8 main things that I want you to understand having to do with the transits this month. And the first one we're going to discuss is October 2nd, the new moon energy and solar eclipse in the sign of Libra. And that's in your second house of the money you make from the work that you do, your sense of self, self-esteem. A second house also rules our mouth and the food we put in our mouth. It rules our inner body, meaning our inner organs and our inner health, or not so much health, good or bad, but it represents the existence of our inner body, if that makes sense. Those are all second house energies, whereas Libra is very connected. It's ruled by Venus. Venus is ruled by Venus, and the second house is naturally ruled by Venus. Very connected to money, love, sense of self and self-esteem as well, right? And are we being treated fairly? Are we not being treated fairly? That's always the big question here. And so new moons are realizations and solar eclipses are something gets eclipsed out that's very connected to that solar energy, has to do with ego consciousness, our joy, connected to our love life, connected to our children, connected to our business. It's very connected to our overall joy. Something gets eclipsed out though, because it's not meant to stay the way that it is, so that something new could come in. So this is a time of realizing in the new moon and then ending something so that something new could come in. Now, this is not happening all by itself. You have a lot of energies in the second house. If you see me looking down, I'm just looking at your chart. You ready? Juno, which is very connected to marital commitment. Marital commitment or just commitment in general. You don't have to be married. It's this idea of, am I willing to completely commit to this? What else? You have the moon in there, right? But the moon is not only working by itself, the moon is working with Vulcan, and Vulcan is about endings. And I don't mean like a little ending, I mean a big ending. This is like the kind of ending where it's like something has got to stop being the way that it's been. And now, because it's so close to Juno, and Juno is very connected to this idea of how committed are we in relationships? Well, something's got to stop because something is compromising your sense of self, or something is compromising your finances, right? It could be one or the other. But it's working with that moon energy. So you're feeling a certain way about it. You're feeling emotional, but then it's adjacent then to also to Mercury. Mercury is only 4 degrees away. So that Mercury energy now says, this is how I'm feeling, and I have to communicate it. We have to talk about the elephant in the room. We have to have the conversation. You want to be careful because it's also working with Black Moon Lilith. And Black Moon Lilith in Libra, there's got to be transparency. There's got to be fairness, because if you think somebody is being unfair, chances are you're being unfair too. Why? Because whatever Libra is, it's an energy of mirroring. So while we might recognize that something is a certain way when it comes to our finances, or because of how we feel about ourselves right now, where it's like, well, I'm not feeling good and optimistic about this because this, and this happened, and that, and that happened. But there's got to be something in there where you're involved in the experience as well. So this is a really good way of using this new moon and solar eclipse energy is own your stuff. Even if owning your stuff simply means just saying, I've allowed this to happen. I've allowed this to continue. I am responsible for this as well. Even if you're in a mutual situation where somebody else had something to do with it as well. And even if, again, your role was simply staying and not making changes, okay? So that's important to note. It's also working with Estrella. Estrella is something has reached its expiration date and you've been staying in a way of thinking, This could be connected to your job. This could be connected to a practice that you have. It could be a self-sabotaging behavior. It could be anything like that, right? Because the second house rules the food that we eat, the drink that we take in, anything we put in our body, are again very connected to our internal health, our physical body, but also very connected to our money. And saying, okay, things haven't been really going the way that I wanted. Maybe I haven't been willing to make the bigger changes in the way that maybe I should have up to now. And this month, though, is going to bring everything to a bit of a culmination. Okay. Now it's also working with the sun, which is focused, very connected to our children, very connected to our work, very connected to our long term. And it's also working with the South Node, recognition that something needs excretion, something needs to be released and let go of, right? And what's got to be let go of is this lack of transparency, this lack of fairness. South Node is the shadow manifestation of Libra, which can be that, maybe being a little, trying to fit a circle in a square with a relationship, with a job, with some sort of situation, and just saying, okay, I have to see the truth for what it is in this second house space. It's like I need to look at myself through not rose-colored glasses, but through very clear glasses. What am I capable of? What am I able to do pragmatically right now when it comes to my life? Being very honest with yourself. What can I swing? I know what I want to swing. Can I swing it? If I can't, what is a good second option to that? Does that make sense? So this is all very, very important energy for you guys. Now on a week later, on October 9th, Wednesday as well, October 9th, Jupiter goes retrograde in the sign of Gemini, which is in your 10th house of career, public reputation, standing in the world, the status of your most important relationships. And when Jupiter goes retrograde, we can feel a little unlucky. We could feel like things are just not manifesting. I don't feel heard. I don't feel understood. I don't feel seen. Why am I not feeling as lucky when it comes to my career or within my marriage or within on the path that I really want to ultimately manifest for myself? This is not going to last. I don't want you to bug about it, okay? It's not. That Jupiter will go back to being direct. You will have positive manifestations. I'm not worried about you. I'm not, seriously, because once Jupiter is going to be in Gemini all the way until June of 2025, and then he's going to go into your 11th house of goals and gains for a year. Okay. Yeah, but the thing is, not everything is going to go the way that you would want it to go, but it's going to go exactly the way that you need it to go. I hope that doesn't scare you, and I hope it makes sense because I'm not worried about it. I hope you are not. Okay. Pluto goes direct in Capricorn on October 11th. We kind of been waiting for this. So this is happening in your 5th house. So, it's been a lot of cleanup on aisle 9, for the past month. Because Pluto had been in Aquarius, dipped back on September 1st, in that retrograde station, and has been there. Now it's time for him to go direct at that last crucial 29th degree. 5th house energy. 5th house has to do with your children, falling in love, love affairs, romance, your own business, monetizable talents. So what needs to be brought out to the world, what needs to be changed in relationship, what situation has to change when it comes to your kids, because something's been going on here that has been very controlling and maybe not in the best way when it comes to your children. Really looking at these things and being very responsible and very serious about it as well. Anything in that 5th house realm. Keep in mind, Pluto is going to be going into your 6th house in the middle of November for the next 20 years. So we'll never be at this degree again in your life, okay? So that'll be an interesting energy. And I don't think it's going to be earth-shattering or anything like that, nothing like that. But it's just going to be realizing like that things just need to change in that space. Some of you are going to be realizing, you know what, I don't want to have my own business anymore. I want to go work for someone. Or you're going to be realizing the opposite. It's time for me to not work for anybody and once and for all open up my own business, do my own thing. A lot of you are going to be in that space. Some of you are going to be realizing 5th house can be very connected to partying, Virgo, having a little good time partying in that 5th house energy. What it is that you do with your fun time and going into the 6th house is the house of health. So it's cusping on the 29th degree. So there might be this realization like, you know what, maybe I have to pull back on, drinking or, eating those foods or not exercising or doing something there. This could also indicate a big change in the life of your children, especially your oldest child, right? The change has been going. And so if you're resonating with this is nothing absolutely new to you, but there's going to be a leveling up of it. There's going to be some sort of shift going on, especially over the course of the next month. So there could be some sort of realization. Things could be getting better, or there could even be an additional challenge. It does depend on what else is in your birth chart. Now, on Sunday, October 13th, we have Mercury going into the sign of Scorpio in your third house. Mercury is very exalted in the third house because he's the natural landlord of the third. And in Scorpio, it's very serious. So for a few days, like 4 days, Venus is going to be in there as well. So there could be some serious conversations in relationship with your marriage, with a boss, serious conversations about money, about where it is that you're living, because the third house is about neighborhood, your zip code, where you're actually, where you're actually living. Now, Scorpio is one of the moving energies, especially if you're moving for work, right? So there could be a lot of conversation about that, about, and it doesn't have to be happening right now. I don't see it happening right now, but the conversation is certainly going to be happening in the month of October. Although some of you may be moving by November. Now on the 17th, October 17th, Thursday, October 17th, Venus enters Sagittarius. So Sagittarius is in your fourth house. So that's lovely for the home environment. Some of you may be just falling in love with a new place of living, just trying to figure out if you actually want to move to a new location that's very different, very far away. Some of you might be going on vacation to go check a place out. Not all of you, but some of you, I can see that depending on what else is in your chart. Venus and Sagittarius energy could also be getting some very helpful assistance for someone in your family, being very loving and very giving to help a family member. It could be one of your kids, maybe it's a parent, to move forward in a better way. So maybe it could be a therapist, or it could be some sort of supportive program, or it could be, reaching out to get some sort of help in that arena as well. Venus in there also is great if you're in the legal profession and you're going to be opening up any sort of home business. Very good there. You would be making money. This would be very good for you. And some of you, some of you are really going to be looking at your environment and be like, I want to give this place a little sprucey spring clean, even though we're in fall, or realizing that you maybe at some point want to move, and you have start having that conversation. We have the full moon in Aries on October 17th, Thursday, October 17th, and that full moon in Aries is going to be happening in your eighth house. So some sort of culmination of emotions in that eighth house of endings and beginnings. Other people's money, debt, taxes. That full moon energy could have you in a space of great resolve to pay off debt. The full moon could be a realization that you came into some money as well. I wish that for all of you. Yeah, I wish that for all of you. So this would be like an inheritance, an insurance payout, some sort of settlement, a legal settlement. Getting help, though, it doesn't even have to be a settlement. You might be getting help from a family member or somebody who cares about you, because it is very connected to other people's money. And there could be this realization that somebody is willing to help you out. There could also be an offer of moving. Maybe you're going to be moving in with somebody. But I can tell you one thing for sure, Virgo, is there's some sort of new experience that's going to be going on here. For sure. Because and anytime we have a full moon energy in Aries in the eighth, and we have the North Node and Chiron in there might be the passing away of somebody in your life as well, right? Somebody who's transitioning over. This can certainly happen as well. You would know about it though before. This is not a Uranian type of energy, so it's something that would not shock you, or it would be something that you would kind of see coming, if that makes sense. Okay, if that makes sense to you. what else do we have going on? Venus and Sag, full moon in Aries, Sun in Scorpio. So happy birthday to our Scorpio friends. Again, that's going to be in your third house. So the focus is going to be on your third house for the next month. So the focus is going to be on communication. The focus is going to be on, because Venus is going to be, well, Venus is in Sagittarius at that point, but Mercury is going to be in there. So lots of focus on communication and conversations where it's sort of framed as, okay, now what are we going to do? Now let's talk about what's next. So there's a lot of planning that's going to be going on here, a lot of conversing. Sun in Scorpio as well could be, because it's the house of the messenger and the sun is about focus. And so you might, and the sun is very connected to our children. So you might be getting a message from someone about one of your children saying that something needs to change. Something's got to change. So maybe one of your children are dealing with some sort of like learning challenge or a drug situation or, maybe you're getting word that one of your children is pregnant on a more optimistic level, or they want to get married, or maybe you're finding out that one of your kids are getting divorced, or one of your kids are moving, right? Some sort of change could be going on there in the house of the messenger with the sun beating down there. You could be getting a message also about something pertaining to your business that needs to change as well. This does not have to be a bad thing, guys. It can be a good thing. The sun in Scorpio, it just brings a lot of focus to that point of your life. But Scorpio naturally is very serious and naturally very honest and naturally very connected to the past. Realization with the past was very connected to anxiety as well. And because it rules like our mental realm, that third house as well. Don't be surprised if you're just like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. I don't know how I'm going to do this. How am I going to fix this? How am I going to, and that's normal. It's not going to last. But if you're feeling that way, try to problem solve. Don't let yourself get sucked down the rabbit hole. And then finally, we have Vesta going into that second house, Libra energy on Saturday, October 26th. And I love this energy. That second house of your physical body, the money you make from the work that you do, all that energy we talked about having to do with the new moon and the solar eclipse in Libra, now has Vesta going in there. And Vesta is all about perseverance. And it's like, I'm going to do this. Working with Juno, it's going to be like, I'm going to get this done. I'm going to be committed to this. And I'm going to fix my money. I'm going to fix my sense of self. I'm going to fix my self-esteem. I'm going to get straight with my health. I'm going to watch what I eat. I'm going to take care of my body. I'm going to, right? It's going to be like kind of feeding into that space in a very beautiful way towards the end of the month. So, while there might be decisions and some things that are going to come up throughout the month ends on a much more optimistic point. So I really want you guys to focus on that and just deal with the baby storms as they come up. I don't see anything big and absolutely bananas. There are going to be things just because Pluto is at 29 degree. There will be stress with Saturn and Pisces retrograde in the seventh house. Absolutely. Stress with a partner, stress with a boss. It could certainly be that, right? Much of it can be very connected to this idea of a business and or children, or for even some of you connected to where it is that you're living. This is just part of the process though, but you are going to end up in a much more optimistic place. Okay, my friends. So I hope this was helpful in some way. Thanks for hanging with me, and I will see you guys for November. Take care now. Bye-bye. Libra, I hope you guys are doing great. Man, do you have a lot going on in your energy? Let's talk about this. Let's unpack just your Libra house. October 2nd, we have the new moon and the solar eclipse in your energy. Okay, now hold on. That's not it though. I'm going to be looking at your chart. Check it out. I'm going to break it down for you. You have Juno in there. You have part of fortune. You have the moon. You have Vulcan. You have Mercury, Black Moon Lilith. We have Estrella, the sun, and the South Node. What? That is like a partay going on in your energy. So this is going to be very interesting for you because there's going to be this realization in your emotional space. Juno's very connected to marriage, very connected to anything that you feel a deep sense of commitment to. It's going to be working with Black Moon Lilith, which is a blind spot that you have, but in the sign of Libra, it's all about mirroring. So like looking at your marital relationship or even your job. It's a little bit of a wild card house because it's in your sign. It's in your first house. But looking at something and saying like, okay, that person or that situation is a problem, but you need to say, I am part of the problem as well. And let me be very fair and open and even-handed about it, right? Because what happens when we have these heavy energies in Libra, we don't want to create any nasty karma saying everything is all somebody else's fault. Now, it might be. I'm going to give you an example. Let's say somebody cheats on you, right, in a relationship. I'm just giving this as an example. And you're really upset about it, and, rightfully so. Why are you staying with them if it goes against your consciousness and what it is that you view as right? So they might have cheated and you're really upset about it, but then if you stay, that's on you at that point. I know that sounds harsh, but Black Moon Lilith can be harsh. And I'm giving that as an example. You didn't actually create the problem. But by allowing it to continue and or not responding to it in a more self-loving and self-respectful way, then it's on you. Because if you're dealing with somebody who's going to be messy energy, they're going to be messy with or without you. You can't change them. You can only change your experience, yourself, right? And the way that you respond to things, right? That's very important to understand for you guys for this particular month. Well, it's not only going to be this month. I mean, this is really going to be sort of coloring the next 6 to 12 months for you. There's no question, right? It's also working with your part of fortune, though, really being able to hone into your natural gifts and abilities, how it is that you really feel about the path that you're on, right? And recognizing, and this is a very important one, Vulcan in there. Vulcan is working with Mercury. Like, what has to end on your path, the path that you're on right now, something's got to give. You can't keep doing this. You can't keep going the way that you're going. So something's got to end, and you have to talk about it because it's working with Mercury. It's working with Estrella. Estrella is all about red flags and all of like the horns saying, way past the expiration date, man. You've been staying in something, you've been doing something too long. This should have been ended already. You have to stop this. That energy is working with the sun, which is connected to your joy. It's connected to children. It's connected to love. It's connected to a business. So what has to end there? Do you have to get off that stump and say, let's go, let's have a child, or let's go and make the decision and let everybody know we're not going to have children? We're going to fall in love. We're not going to fall in love. We're going to open the business. We're not going to open the business. We're going to write that screenplay. We're not going to write that screenplay. You have to make a decision because it's also working with the South Node, which is all about letting go of something. South Node, Estrella, Vulcan, the eclipse. Something's got to go. New moon, realizing something. Is this fair? Do I feel good? Do I feel like I can continue in this? Is this a beautiful thing? Now, the new moon energy could bring you news that you find out you're pregnant. You find out that you could get proposed to, or you can propose to somebody. It's this new moon. It's like these new emotions, things that have been cooking, all of a sudden they come up for realization. But then we also have it with the eclipse. But that's the thing. Because it's like, what's getting eclipsed out to get eclipsed in? Doesn't have to be negative. If somebody asks you to marry them, or you ask somebody to marry you, there is a way of living that's being eclipsed, whether you like it or not, even if it's just a name alone. If you guys, again, you're making that decision. So those are the themes, okay, having to do with this new moon and solar eclipse in Libra. Now, on Wednesday, a week later, October 9th, Jupiter is going retrograde in the sign of Gemini in your 9th house. And whenever Jupiter goes retrograde, Jupiter, even though Jupiter is very exalted in the 9th house, because that's where he naturally lives, when he goes retrograde, he goes within, and he's not as beneficial. He's not as overt. He's a lot shyer. He's a lot more, he doesn't feel very lucky. He doesn't feel like he could move forward right now. And it's just going to be for a bit, though. It's going to be for about a month where you're going to be feeling that space in the 9th house. So maybe you want to go for some sort of legal situation, because the ninth house is also lawyers, legalities, local governance. Maybe you're in the throes of some sort of legal situation, some sort of difficulty with the law. You're going to feel a little unlucky when it comes to how things are rolling out over the next month. Or if you want to start any sort of situation, I wouldn't start anything right away. Just because with that Saturn retrograde still, um, yeah, with the Saturn still being retrograde, with that Chiron in the seventh, just looking at like the legal houses, I would wait. I would wait it out. Wait until after the storm. You don't have to get anything going too sweet. I would wait it out for a couple of months if you're looking to actively sue someone. You could certainly, Jupiter retrograde is very good for interviewing legal. It's very good to think about different schools that you might want to get a higher degree in, because a lot of you might be thinking about going back to school with Jupiter and Gemini, learning something new. You might not be able to make the decision right now. Maybe you miss deadlines, whatever it is. So do the research, do any sort of research having to do with launching, marketing, advertising, anything that's going to get any of your work out there. Jupiter retrograde in Gemini could bring a lot of miscommunication with father energy or second spouse energy as well, or even grandfather energy. So you do want to be careful there, because Jupiter retrograde can bring where you don't feel very lucky, where there ends up being like some challenges having to do with communication. But this is the thing that we have to understand, particularly while, what Mars is doing. Mars is in that is, especially being in Cancer around this time, as we're really fighting for our own emotional security and happiness, and this feeling for home. And if we feel like we're living a life where our shoes are on the wrong feet, that's a really difficult experience to sort of stay in, right? It's like we could fool ourselves and others for just so long before we have to just come out and say what it is that we're feeling. Now, Pluto does go direct in Capricorn on October 11th, and that's happening in your fourth house. So now things have been changing on the home front, right? I mean, that fourth house energy has to do with your home, property, real estate, very connected to family, very connected to parenting, very connected to long term as well. Capricorn is an idea that's a sign that's very connected to, besides your career, the status of your most important relationships. And those have been changing, and there might have been like progressive changes where they were really bad and then they got better and then it was bad and then it was good and this constant back and forth. Well, there's going to be some sort of new layer thrown onto things, because the 29th degree, very important degree, and it's going to be direct now. So now something needs to happen, and it's the shadow manifestation of Capricorn. So now it's about, well, I got to get serious. Do I want to stay in this or not? Do I want to stay in this home or not? Do I want to stay in this marriage or not? Do I want a child or not? Am I going to be tolerant of this situation having to do with my children, or having to do with my family, or having to do with working from home? Whatever it is, these are all different fourth house themes. Something has got to give and something's going to change. This is going to be happening over the course of the next month, because by the time we hit middle of November, that's when Pluto is going to be going into your fifth house Aquarius energy for the next 20 years. So, Pluto in the fifth house brings, new love relationships, children, if you're in that age and stage of your life, a new business. I mean, there are a new level of joy for sure. It's going to be a hell of a lot easier than what you've been going through since 2008 in that fourth house energy. I will tell you that. But this is the last hurrah. So something's got to be wrapped up there. So some sort of final decision when it comes to your home environment, property, real estate, or anything that goes on within the home. Now, Mercury enters Scorpio on October 13th, which is a Sunday. And that Scorpio energy is in your second house. So Mercury is going to be entering in there it's going to be in there for about 3-4 days with Venus. So Mercury is very serious. Mercury is very, he doesn't like to play in that second house. And he wants to have the conversations about money, about any sort of investments. There could be a very serious conversation about marriage, having a child, a divorce, debt, paying off taxes, shared belief system. You may sit down and have a very open discussion about your intimate life with a partner, but this is going to happen, especially within those 4 days from like the 13th to the 17th. those are actually really good days to have that conversation. Now, on the 17th, Venus is going to move out of that second house energy and go into your third house, Sagittarius energy. So Venus in the third can bring a lot of friendly energies, connecting with new people. You could meet somebody new, just like in your neighborhood through business. They could be from a different culture, from a different area than you. Could certainly be that. Venus in the third house with Sagittarius could also be very good if you're thinking about moving far away. You could find a house that you really like. Some of you may be making a decision about moving, making a decision. Venus in the third is very good for learning a new skill set. It's very good for interviewing as well. Really good if you're out of work and you need to interview. I love that whole Venus transit in Sagittarius. Very nice as well, because the transiting Pallas Athena is going to be in there as well. So very nice energy to do that. If you have to have any important negotiations, any important conversations are really good to do with Venus and Sag in the third house. Now, you could also be getting, by the way, some good news. Some good news having to do with health, but then you're going to be having a conversation about how is it all going to roll out moving forward? And there are going to be some serious conversations about that. Then we have the full moon in Aries on October 17th, and that's going to be happening in your seventh house through this full moon energy. So that first house, seventh house axis is just not playing around with you guys, right? It's going to be a lot of truths being revealed, a lot of things being realized. Again, some of you may find out that you're expecting, or you may be deciding that you don't want to have children after all. You may be deciding that it's time for you to get out of your marriage, or it's time for you to get married, right? This is going to be this eclipse energy with the moon energy is very like it's this or that. There's not a boatload of gray going on here, right? But with that moon energy, that full moon energy in Aries, it's also working with Chiron, and it's also working with the North Node. And we have to understand that it's also working with, what else is it working with? Eris energy as well. Eris is retrograde in that space, as is Chiron and the North Node. They're all retrograde. So there can be some fear-based energies going on when it comes to actually biting into that new normal. You could think about it more than actually doing it at this point, but that's okay. That's okay right now. There's going to be this energy of problem solving. And trust me, by the end of the month, we do have the sun going into that Scorpio energy, so it's going to be a lot of focus on that second house, having to do with your money, having to do with your physical body, your internal body, your health. You know, that full moon in Aries energy also, I just want to say, it could bring also some sort of information about a significant other, some sort of information about a potential job as well. Because Chiron is in there as well, there might be some sort of realization that a partner, um, a partner or a boss have some sort of health issue that needs addressing. Some of you are going to be experiencing it like that. The final energy that I want to discuss, though, is Vesta entering Libra. And I really like this energy on October 26th. Vesta is going to be moving from your 12th house of the hidden into your first house. And she's all about perseverance. And because she's about perseverance and because she's going to be conjunct your South Node, there's going to be a lot of energetic support for you to let go of whatever it is that's no longer serving you. That idea that's just not worth holding on to, you're going to have a lot of energetic support by the end of October to finally make that decision that's been really bothering you, that's been there, that you've been trying not to see, that you've been trying to make believe that it's not an issue, it's not a thing. You've been trying to, paint something as more positive, even though you know different, right, Libra? And so now you're going to have a lot more support to move into a space of leveling up some part of your life there. All right, my friends, I hope that was helpful in some way. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in November. Bye-bye. Hey, Scorpio, hope you guys are doing great. Let's talk about October. So let's talk about all this energy that's in your 12th house. I'm wondering how well any of you are sleeping these days. Wednesday, October 2nd, we have a new moon and a solar eclipse in Libra, but they're not the only kids in town, right? At that point. Let me just tell you what's going on in your 12th house. We have Juno, the moon, Vulcan, Mercury, Black Moon Lilith, Estrella, the sun, and the South Node, all in your 12th house of the hidden, the subconscious, behind the scenes. It's the house of sleep. It's the house of self-sabotaging behaviors. It's the house of feeling victimized, the sense of victimhood. This is going to be very real for you guys because a lot of you are going to be laying down the law with this one. Because again, the new moon has to do with this idea of realization. Now, for some of you, you may find out that you're pregnant because the 12th house is very connected to a baby being in utero, and new moon energy is very connected to that maternal energy, and the 12th house is the water of the womb, right? But then we have that solar eclipse in Libra. So but some of you are just like not feeling connected. If you are pregnant, you're not feeling very connected to your partner. You're not feeling like you're just not feeling it. For a lot of you, you could be going through this very interesting kind of energy there where you're sort of like of two minds. Others of you may be feeling like that when it comes to a relationship, a romantic relationship, because it's happening in Libra, and Libra is very connected to romantic partnerships. And so let's break it down. I mean, we have Juno is very connected to marriage, the idea of marriage and that absolute commitment. That's working with the moon. The moon energy is very connected to your emotions around this idea of relationship, around money. It's also money. And by the way, the subtext is this fair or is it not fair? Okay. Fairness, not fair. Because remember, Libra is the scales, right? That's Libra energy. So is this fair? Is this not fair? It's working with Vulcan. Vulcan is all about, let's take this down to the ground. I'm not doing this anymore. It's not that I want to throw it out, but I'm not doing it like this anymore. And Mercury is giving you, it's in there with Mercury. Mercury is giving you the energy to have the conversation about it. That Black Moon Lilith, though, in that space, you want to make sure that you recognize that anything that happens in Libra is mirrored. So you might be blaming a partner for A, B, and C, whether they weren't transparent, honest, they're not keeping their word. Maybe they are, and there's another issue. Maybe your relationship is amazing, and this has to do with perhaps one of your children or perhaps something going on at work. Right. It really could be that, or it could even be some sort of situation that comes into the realm of realization pertaining to your health, because that 12th house, 6th house axis is very connected to our health as well, but it's also connected to self-sabotaging behavior. So we have to recognize our responsibilities in the way that something is going. So if it's a health situation, maybe were we taking the best care of our own health? If it has to do with the relationship, have we been allowing and enabling a certain person to get away with certain things or be in a certain way? You understand, right? It's very important because it's working with Black Moon Lilith. So we want to be mindful of not just blaming a situation or blaming out. It's also working with the sun. Now, the sun is our life focus. It's our essence. It's our focus right now for sure, right? And our joy and our happiness, our ability to feel loved and appreciated. And that's working with the South Node, which is very connected to what do we need to let go of now at this point, right? And Estrella. Estrella is what has passed its expiration date, at least in the way that it's been. And there is this recognition that in that 12th house of the hidden, maybe you've been living in some sort of arrangement or situation that's sort of hidden away from either your close friends and family or away from greater society, something hidden about it, right? Because it's 12th house. Or maybe you and a partner have been doing something in private, where your relationship is not necessarily private, but you've been doing something in private. This could be very connected to some sort of habit that you have, some sort of self-sabotaging habit that you have. It could be allowing yourself to be treated a certain way when it comes to work, when it comes to colleagues, when it comes to your employees, when it comes to your daily responsibilities as well. Have you been showing up? Have you been doing everything that you're supposed to be doing or not? Or have you been showing up in that way, but you're not, somebody is coming in and taking advantage of you? You get the idea. So I'm giving you those themes, but this is like, that's a lot. That's big. And that's starting the month. And that's going to set the theme. But these energies are going to be rolling out for the next couple of months. But this is going to be a good thing for you because whatever is ending cannot, it can't continue the way that it is. It just can't. So something's got to change one way or another. Now, on the 9th, 1 week later, that next Wednesday, Jupiter goes retrograde in Gemini, and it's in your eighth house. And when Jupiter goes Gemini, we don't feel very lucky, and the eighth house is to do with other people's money. So we can feel very unlucky when it comes to someone maybe who has been giving us money, having to do with debt, taxes, something from an inheritance, an insurance payout, money for, I'm not really going to say retire, really, it could be money coming in for retirement, though thinking about our retirement money is really more 11th house energy, but coming in. So you'll be feeling very worried about money as you move into your future. Gemini is very much about the mental realm, and it's also about communicating. And when Jupiter goes retrograde, Jupiter is all about expansion. When Jupiter goes retrograde, we feel like we can't expand ourselves. And, Gemini is very connected, besides to the mental realm, it's very connected to siblings, extended family. So you could feel like there's a lot of lack of communication with family members having to do with an inheritance situation, or having to do with anyone that you're in any sort of legal situation with, right? There could be some real like tricky energies to navigate there. There could also be some tricky energies that you're needing to deal with when it comes to property or real estate that you want to sell, right? Anything like that, because eighth house does rule mortgages as well. And Jupiter is about moving. It is one of the moving energies, being able to expand and move on. But when it's right, it's not going to last though, Scorpio. So I don't want you to sweat it too much. It's just going to be for about a month. Then it's going to go direct again. But you're going to have this Jupiter energy in that Jupiter and Gemini energy until June. At which time rather, that Jupiter energy is going to be moving into the ninth house of the law, legalities, local governance, right? So there can be a lot of conversations about legal matters, conversations about money, conversations about someone getting divorced, or maybe with somebody who's still legally married and having that final conversation, or having the conversation about you guys leveling it up and getting married, right? But it's not going to happen this month, but the conversations will be happening, okay? They could definitely be happening. And you want to be careful with Jupiter retrograde in Gemini. That's like Mercury retrograde on steroids. So you could feel really misunderstood. It could be a little bit of a tricky energy unless you're talking about promises that were made and how is it going to be rolling out moving forward? Because now it's time to get serious about promises that were made that need to be addressed, especially in relationships. With that Neptune at 28 degrees retrograde in Pisces, you might be looking at either a relationship, some sort of situation having to do with business. Somebody might be trying to sell you something. You want to believe them, but there's something about it that's making you not totally believe them. And it's been bothering you. And this is something that's going to end up coming to the surface to be looked at. Now, we do have Pluto going direct in Capricorn on October 11th. That Capricorn energy is in the third house, having to do with conversations. This third house has to do with your neighborhood, your neighbors. Pluto is connected to moving. A lot of you may be realizing that's it, I'm going to move. Now, you might not be moving like, this month, but it's like, that's it. I want to move. I'm going to go in a different direction. I want to change neighborhoods. I want to change my zip code. Some of you may be even deciding to change countries for sure, right? Because it is working with that ninth house energy as well. But it's moving into that fourth house because Pluto is going into that fourth house in the middle of November. So a lot of you are going to be moving. And at the very least, there are going to be big changes going on within your home and family environment. That's for sure as we move forward. So that direct energy, though, is going to be there's going to be some more action. You're only going to have 4 weeks of it. You will never have this placement again in your lifetime. And it's going to be moving into that fourth house energy, but really watching the way in which you speak and, you know, You don't want to burn down any bridges, I guess is really what I want to say, you know. Mercury goes into Scorpio on October 13th, and that's going to be happening obviously in your sign, in your first house. So Mercury in that first house will make you feel very social. It's going to be in there with Venus for about 4 days. So honestly, the 13th to the 19th, what a good bunch of days to go out and meet new people. Um, very sexy energy, very sexy energy. I'm sorry. I have a window in my office and my husband is making faces at me out my office window. Real mature. And God love him, right? But that's going to be an energy there that's very positive for meeting new people, but it's also going to be a good energy for you being able to have some really good meetings, some good conversations about next step strategies and what it is that you want to do in your life. I really like it for that. Now, Venus going into Sagittarius on October 17th, that's a Thursday. That's going to be happening in your second house. Now, Venus in Sagittarius can be very nice for your money. It can be very nice, and it's working with Pallas Athena. So I really love this for your work. I love this for your money. I love this for your sense of self, self-esteem, and you being able to feel a lot more optimistic and positive about something that's going on with your health. So if you're trying to get in front of some sort of situation, this could be very, very beneficial for you. A really nice energy there. Now, we do have the full moon in Aries happening on Thursday, October 17th. Now, that Aries energy for you is in your sixth house. So the full moon in Aries can bring a culmination to some sort of health situation, a work situation, a situation going on with a colleague or an employee, somebody that you work for, or a situation with one of your pets. Full moons bring something to fruition to be looked at, and it pushes everything onto a new path, into a new normal. Now, it is working with Chiron, so there could be something that even though there's something painful about it, it's going to ultimately be healing. This is not meant to be a comfortable energy because it's working with the North Node, which is very connected to destiny, right? But it's something that's out of your wheelhouse. It's something that's not going to make you feel totally comfortable, but you're going to be doing it anyway, even though it's making you feel uncomfortable. Now, I just want to give a little caveat. If you're keeping yourself in a position that is very painful for you, but because you're too afraid to make the change, or you feel like for whatever reason you can't, just at least be honest with yourself and just sort of say out loud, I know this is bad for me, but I'm choosing to stay in it. I just energetically, just having that validated, that sense of validation or validating why it is that you feel like you need to stay. Because it does seem like there's something that is 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 not jiving with you 100% and you've been making excuses for it. Call yourself out on that, especially if you're going to decide to not create that change for yourself. Does that make sense to you? Call yourself out. Super important. Sun goes into your sign. Happy birthday to you, by the way. I every month I do run, every single month has two signs associated with it, right? So October has Libra to begin and then Scorpio to end. I have specials for solar returns. And it's already discounted on my site, and all the information is in the description box below, whatever specials that I'm running. So the focus is going to be on your path. It could be impacting anything from relationships to jobs, honestly, because that first house is a wild card house, but there's going to be a focus on change, transformation, things that feel very deep and intense, and ride or die energy is going to be very attractive to you, very attractive to you. Yeah. And so there is anxiety though, there's anxiety there about where it is that you're going. And that's normal. That's normal. That's okay. Don't allow that to hold you back because we do have Vesta going into Libra. And I love this energy. It's happening in your 12th house on October 26th. And Vesta is very connected to perseverance and really like giving it your all. And in the 12th house, it is the house of the hidden, persevering through something. So if you feeling like you've been misused, if you feel like you've been victimized, if you feel like there's self-sabotaging behavior going on in your life, you're going to have the wherewithal and you're going to have the perseverance to get in front of it, to not allow it to wreck you, to not allow it to have more control over you. You might not be feeling it at the beginning of the month, but you will by the end of the month, okay? It's there for you to have. It's not a comfortable energy, but it's a good energy nonetheless. And I do think that between, you know, this Mercury going into your sign, I mean, there's a lot of problem solving energy and a lot of nice energy as well, while there can be some challenges going on. But the month ends a lot more optimistically than it begins. So that's good. All right, my friends, hopefully that was helpful in some way. Thank you so much for hanging with me, and I will see you guys in November. Bye-bye. Sagittarius, I hope you guys are doing great. So let's talk about the main energies that you guys should understand this month. And let's start off with October 2nd with the new moon and the solar eclipse in the sign of Libra in your 11th house of goals and gains, friendships, group work. Um, it has to do with like really what's going on with the next like 10 to 15 years of your life. New moon energy brings something new to the surface, something new finally coming to a culmination. So because it's 11th house energy, maybe something that you've been working on for a long time, finally coming to fruition. Something that you've been thinking or feeling for a long time, you're finally doing something about it. That's happening at the same time of a solar eclipse in the sign of Libra. Libra is very connected to contracts, is very connected to a boss or bosses. It has to do with your energetic output at work. And because it's connected to that 11th house for this, remember something's getting eclipsed out so that something new could come in. So there's something that is changing when it comes to your goals and gains, when it's coming to friendships, when it comes to any sort of energy that has to do with the following people, an older sibling, a daughter-in-law, son-in-law, stepchildren, grandchildren, right? Something gets eclipsed out. The solar eclipse in Libra, something gets eclipsed out, so something gets eclipsed in. So some of you may be finding out that, for example, because it's in the 11th house opposing the 5th house of children, that one of you, that maybe your oldest child is expecting a baby, or they're getting married, or they're getting divorced, or something along those lines within that realm. Some of you may be finding out that you're finally getting that creative project done, or you thought you were going to get it done and it gets eclipsed out because it wasn't meant to happen in that way, and you sort of sent back to the drawing board, right? So it could be any of these energies, but something gets realized, something leaves, and then something new comes in, right? It's a lot of important energies, but what's really important to note is what else is going on in that 11th house. You have the south node, you have so many energies. You have the south node, the sun, Astraea, Mercury, Black Moon Lilith, Vulcan, Juno, the moon. Wow, that's a lot of energies in there. And so the south node with the sun, it's like releasing, right? Something having to do with either your children or some sort of creative project. Because, excuse me, working with Astraea, something has reached its expiration date, right? It can't continue the way that it's been. So there's going to be either a leveling up or newness about it. And there's got to be conversation about it and some sort of action, because something hasn't been fair the way that it's been. Black Moon Lilith, not fair. So something's got to end, right? Any sort of, and this is the thing though, whenever Black Moon Lilith, any energy is in Libra, Libra is just by nature a mirroring energy. So when we have Black Moon Lilith in Libra, we're mirroring some sort of blind spot. So we could be dealing with somebody that doesn't see their own stuff. But you also have to be very honest about your own stuff, right? Because it's a blind spot when it comes to things being fair versus not fair, things being transparent versus not transparent. What are you allowing to continue having to deal with some sort of business situation, some sort of relationship? Maybe somebody has been pulling some shenanigans and you're allowing it. And that's your responsibility that you have to look at, but that's got to end, because there's got to be absolute commitment in something. And that commitment has to be felt on an emotional level, right? Having to do with a very important situation that's going to be moving your life forward. So this could be connected again to a business situation. It could be connected to something, or you may be again experiencing this energy as something that your kids are going through. Or this could even be some sort of situation having to do with finances, because the 11th house is, again, the goals and gains and having to do with, money for your future as well, right? So something's being realized, something has to be eclipsed out, something is coming back in. The way the things have been moving, right? Having to do with your goals and gains and friends, daughter-in-law, son-in-law, stepchildren, grandchildren, something needs to change, right? So that's going to be happening at the beginning of the month. Now, a week later on October 9th, Jupiter goes retrograde in the sign of Gemini, which is in your 7th house. And so you could be feeling a little like unlucky when it comes to some sort of contract. This could have to do with a significant other in a marriage. It could have to do with a boss. Boss is somebody that you have some sort of serious contractual agreement with, but it could also be like your energetic output. So for a lot of you, Sagittarius, you may be realizing like, either feeling very like a lack of luck when it comes to what's going on in your marriage, really wondering if you guys are going to make it over the long term. This is going to be temporary, guys, so don't get sucked down the rabbit hole. There could be some challenges in relationship, but there could also just be a challenge within yourself having to do with the work that you do and just saying like, what am I doing? Do I even really want to do this? I don't know what the hell I want. Right? It could really be that for a good month where you're like, I don't know if I'm even doing the right thing. I'm not sure, right? Because everything could feel very up in the air in that energy. It's not going to last. Now, on the 11th, we have Pluto goes direct in Capricorn. And that Capricorn energy is in the 2nd house of your physical body health, very connected to your money, right? Very connected to your sense of self, your self-esteem, how it is that you feel about your physical body, how it is that you feel about yourself, and how it is that you feel about your money. So it's going direct. So things have been very stagnant, very wonky, all of that, because it's been retrograde. Things are finally going to start moving forward. It's just going to be there for a month, direct. Then it's going to go into that 3rd house, Aquarius energy in the middle of November. We'll talk more about that next month. We have Mercury going into Scorpio, and that Scorpio energy, that's happening on the 13th, so you might want to note that. And that Scorpio energy is in your 12th house. So Mercury going into your 12th house can make your sleep very busy. Very busy. A lot of anxiety, waking you up at 3 o'clock in the morning, so definitely get that chamomile tea going. That's what works for me. I have a lot of friends who do like the CBD gummies or maybe the stronger gummies. I can't do that. I have the adverse reaction with all of those things. But I have friends and like my sister-in-law swears by them and anything like that to chill out your sleep, because it is the kind of thing where it is that real like 9 of Swords energy. Those of you who know tarot, where it's like not responding well to the external stress of things because your way how you're going to deal with something is just not, you can't figure it out. You can't figure it out, right? And it's connected to a scorpionic thing, which is all about divorce. And should we get married? It's got to do with life and death. You could be very worried about dying. You could be worried about getting married. You could be worried about having a baby, or worried about somebody very close to you having a baby, or worried about divorce, or worried about this next chapter in your life, worried about an investment being made, whether you're the one investing or somebody is maybe investing in you. But there is worry and concern around that. So just navigate that gingerly. It is the house of the hidden. This is going to be very internal for you. So it's not like you're going to be dealing with it out with people. So just try to keep yourself as chill as you can. Now, Venus goes into Sagittarius on the 17th. 17th, we have 2 things. We have Venus going into your energy, and then we have the full moon in Aries. So we have those 2 things going on. And those energies are going to actually be trining each other, which will be nice. Which will be very, very nice. But let's talk about Venus going into your sign. Beautiful. You're going to be looking super cute. People are going to be very attracted to you. People are going to want to listen to you. Remember, Venus is the baby benefic. And, Venus is very connected to beauty. It's also very connected to money and your ability to move forward. Now, the full moon in Aries, Aries is in the 5th house. of monetizable talent, of any sort of creative projects that you have, falling in love, love affairs, romance, as well as your children. Full moon in Aries could mean you find out that your oldest child is pregnant. Full moon in Aries could be you meeting somebody new romantically. Could be starting a whole new phase having to do with some sort of creative project. Really beautiful there. We have the sun going into Scorpio on October 22nd. That Scorpio energy is again in your 12th house. So there's going to be a lot of focus on things that are behind the scenes. So Sag, you might be really in the throes of phone calls, text messages, emails. It's going to be busy. But this is behind the scenes of planning. It's very creative because it's the 12th house. Very creative. Now, because it's happening in Scorpio, right? There again, that absolute focus is going to be on planning all of those things in a way to create change. Some of you are going to be very busy making arrangements to get divorced, to get married, to deal with the new life of somebody else coming in. A lot of you could be in the throes of paying off debt. Could be a lot of focus on that because Scorpio is very much about debt. That sun is very benefic and it's very much about focus, right? And it's going to be in that 12th house, right? Opposing the 6th house. So lots of problem solving there is going to be going on as well. Now, to end the month on the 26th, we have Vesta enters Libra. So Vesta is very connected to this idea of perseverance. So remember all of that energy that I started out with, right? For your section of the video, talking about that new moon and solar eclipse energy. Well, here comes Vesta a few weeks later to say, I'm going to give you the perseverance that you need to attain your goals and gains, to work with these people, to do whatever it is that you need to do. So even though a lot of the month could be touch and go when it comes to friendships, circumstances going on with any of the people I identified as 11th house, anything like that, it's going to end on a much more optimistic note. I do want you to understand that there's going to be more fairness. There's going to be a lot more transparency. So my friends, I hope that was helpful for you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I will see you in November. Take care now. Bye-bye. Capricorn, I hope you guys are doing great. Let's talk about October. We're going to start with, there are around 8 things that I really want to focus on for October. October 2nd, that new moon and solar eclipse in Libra is going to be happening in your 10th house. So, I mean, that's an angular house, and there are so many people at this party, at this new moon and solar eclipse party. It's bananas. Well, let's talk about these first. New moon is about realization. The moon is very connected to our water energies, our emotions. It's a very fertile energy. A new moon can bring a new job, a new realization in the 10th house that you want to do or don't want to do something, right? When it comes to career, public reputation, standing in the world, some of you may be even looking at how you feel about your marriage and your most important relationships and getting very serious about where it is that you see your own life going. Now, at the same time, we have the solar eclipse. The solar has to do with our joy. It's very connected to our career, our children. Eclipse. Something's going to be changing here. And it's in the sign of Libra, which is very connected to relationships, but it's also, because it's a Venus ruled energy, our ability to parent, our money, our ability to move forward. So something that we've had in play where we thought we were going is going to be getting eclipsed out so that something new can get eclipsed in. But it's going to be based on this new realization. Now, these energies are happening in a house where there are so many other people at this party. We have, I'm just looking at your chart, the South Node, which is about letting go, needing to let go of something. In the sign of Libra, things that are unfair. Anything that's unfair and not transparent, that's working a few degrees away from the sun, which is not only connected to children and our job, but our joy, right? And really focusing on a new version of joy. It's also working with Estrella, which is recognizing that something's been going on a little too long and it can't continue the way that it is. It's past the expiration date, but you've been resistant to make this change, but it's time to make the change. It's working with Mercury. So all of those emotions have to be conversed. They have to be spoken about. Because Mercury is in there, it's also going to be conjunct Black Moon Lilith. Black Moon Lilith in Libra is a mirroring energy. So while your tendency might be to blame a partner or blame an external situation for something, you have to look at yourself as well. What have you been allowing to continue? What have you been allowing as well? So while they may be responsible for a lot of it, where do you fit in? And again, even if it's just allowing something to continue, but it's working with Vulcan, and Vulcan is about, okay, come on now, it's got to end, no more. There's nothing left of life in the way that this has been. We are going to completely change the way this is, because that's working with Juno. And Juno is about, what are you really, really committed to? And what are you really, really connected to? It's marriage, but it's more than that. And that's working with the moon, right next door to the moon, within a few degrees of how it is that you feel about your marriage, how it is that you feel about your job. How do you feel about the path that you're on? That's a big energy that I'm talking about. But that's where you're going to be literally walking through into that next room of your life. October and November, these big game-changing energies, but there's an odd subtleness about them, even though they're not subtle. But it's I guess the reason I want to say that is because we've all been feeling the change up to this point. So nothing shocks us at this point. We're all just in the space of waiting for the next shoe to drop, right? It just is, because we're still in the middle of the storm. It's not going to end until November. But that's the beginning of the month. That's what it's going to be. But wherever it is that you're moving into, you're definitely moving into a good direction, as long as you remember that Black Moon Lilith. You don't want to be unfair. You don't want to be dishonest. It's in Libra. Okay. You want to be honest. You don't want to self-sabotage yourself there. Okay. Now, Wednesday, October 9th, 1 week later, we have Jupiter goes retrograde in Gemini. And that Gemini is in your 6th house of your daily responsibilities, your daily work environment, as well as your health. Now, when Jupiter goes retrograde in Gemini, in the 6th house, rather, we could feel like we're going through a bit of an unlucky stint when it comes to our health, when it comes to our ability to communicate with others at work, when it comes to, our ability to sort of connect in a real way. Jupiter retrograde we can feel a little unlucky when it comes to a situation having to do with one of our pets, right? And it's just a temporary feeling of not feeling very fortuitous when it comes to this idea of growth and expansion in that 6th house, which is about our health, the body maintenance, as well as our daily job, connecting with our colleagues or employees, or our ability to problem solve. There could be some stuckness there where it's like, I know things need to change, but I don't have complete clarity over, what is it actually going to look like? I don't want you to sweat it too much, because it's not going to last that long. We have Pluto does go direct in Capricorn on October 11th, and that's obviously in your 1st house there at that 29-degree. So here we go. Shadow manifestation of Capricorn is this overwhelming desire for stability, right? And structure and responsibility. And having that in that 1st house energy, you are going to want to feel like you are on a path into your future where there are clean guardrails, and you know where you're going. And you're going to feel that very, very strong. And that month, you'll be feeling it for a month. And then that Pluto energy goes into that 2nd house, into Aquarius energy, and is finally out of our sign. Good riddance, okay? So that's going to be happening there. You're looking at your path, and you're going to be saying the path that you're walking on right now, and you're going to just it's the 1st house. So you're looking at everything. You're looking at your relationships, your friendships, your work. You're looking at everything, and you're like, what's staying and what's got to go, or what stays and has to be completely revamped and updated. And that's going to be very healthy for you. Now, Mercury goes into Scorpio on October 13th, and that's in your 11th house. So lots of communication with siblings. And from the 13th to the 17th, it's going to be in there with Venus. I have to tell you, this is a great energy for hanging out with friends, for making friends, for doing anything that's social, for networking. Amazing. So good. So good to hang out with your stepchildren, your grandchildren, daughter-in-law, son-in-law, older siblings. Awesome little window of energy, that 13th to the 17th especially. I really like it. especially if you're going to be connecting in a way on a deeper level, because Scorpio is very serious and he's very deep and he's very connected to the past. There could be a lot of conversation and communication having to do with inheritance, insurance payouts, having to do with debt, taxes, all of those scorpionic things. There could also be an opportunity for work, and that opportunity requires you to either move somewhere temporarily or some sort of travel or change in that way. So that's going to be happening there. So Mercury goes into Scorpio there. Then 4 days later, Venus moves out of Scorpio and goes into your 12th house, Sagittarius energy. Venus in the 12th house. Venus is hidden in the 12th house. So you could feel, and I know this sounds like a little sad, but you can feel like, how do I say, feel very connected with the other side. For anyone who passed, this is a beautifully nostalgic energy. It's a beautiful energy to pray. It's a beautiful energy to sleep. It's a beautiful energy to meditate. It's an energy, though, that can make you feel not as loved as you would like. And this is, and it's like really looking at, what does that even mean for you? What does that even mean to you? You could have so many people who love you in your life, but for some reason you're not feeling loved. And that could happen when Venus is in the 12th house. So I don't want you to sweat it too much. Now in that Sagittarius energy, I do want to just a little something on the side. Sagittarius has to do with foreign land, foreign travel, foreign cultures, people who are from those spaces. And Venus is very connected to love, and the 12th house is the house of the hidden. So you can certainly connect with somebody on the down low from a different culture that you have these developing feelings for, that you're just keeping very much to yourself. Okay, that could certainly be a manifestation of that for sure. I'm just throwing out themes. And one last theme that's very positive, because that could be kind of sexy and fun. Venus in Sagittarius is very connected to writing. And the 12th house is very creative, and it's very connected to behind the scenes. Venus is very connected to our talent and our ability to make money as well. So you could also, very optimistic perspective of this, could be writing behind the scenes, creating something behind the scenes that you will then later bring out into the public eye. On that same day, we have the full moon in Aries. That would be on the 17th. It's a Thursday. That full moon in Aries energy, and Aries is in the 4th house. So full moon could be finally you're able to move, or finally you're able to do the construction that you've been wanting to do, or something is coming to a head having to do with your family arrangements, something to do with one of your children, maybe finding out one of your children are pregnant, one of your children are getting engaged, one of your children are going to be moving, something having to do with like a new path. It could certainly be that. Full moon in Aries energy could also be the culmination of something new in the life of a member of your first family. Now, because it's in Aries and because it's with the North Node and Chiron, it might not be completely comfortable for you, just to be honest. Now, because it is working with Chiron, and Chiron is retrograde, which can be an internal manifestation of the wounded warrior. So you could be finding out that a family member is dealing with some sort of illness, and that's starting a whole new path for them in one way or another. It could ultimately be the ultimate demise of somebody. I don't wish that. Please let that not even be me, right? As well, just because I already lost 2 of my siblings in June, and I cherish my other 2 who are still with me, and I hope not for that, but would not be surprised if there is a negative development in the health of one of them that's going to be coming to fruition. But that full moon energy, things are illuminated, they're realized, they're seen, okay? So we're seeing this now. It can happen in a metaphorical way where we're realizing what we need on an emotional level to feel emotionally safe and secure in our life. And it's so healthy because there's nothing really, these are all very healthy realizations that we're going to be able to work with. So very nice there. The sun goes into Scorpio, putting the focus on 11th house of friends, goals and gains the next 10 to 15 years. A lot of you are going to be very focused on really addressing what it is that you have, building up the little that you have, the lot of what you have, whatever it is, looking at the money, looking at your friendships, looking at your relationship with your older siblings, your stepchildren, grandchildren, daughter-in-law, son-in-law as well. But the focus is going to be there. Whenever the sun goes into Scorpio, we're very serious. Sun in Scorpio can be very, very sexy. You can find if you're not attached to anyone, maybe you are attached, I'm not judging, but that Scorpio energy can make us very attracted to a friend, you know? So, just keep an eye on that, attracted in a very different way. Um, and finally, we have Vesta going into Libra. I love this energy for you. I love Vesta in Libra because Vesta in Libra allows us to have empathy, allows us to be very supportive, and to allow us to have a lot of fortitude in whatever's going on in that Libra energy. It's like, no matter what, I'm dealing with this. The level of perseverance that we experience with Vesta in Libra is really like a ride or die. Like, I'm going to do this once and for all. I'm doing this. And it's going to be in your 10th house of career, public reputation, standing in the world. There is definitely something going on in that 10th house energy for those of you who are Capricorn risings. So you are either getting a new job, some sort of leveling up in your career, something new is happening in the realm of your marriage, your most important relationships, and where it is that you're going. It's a real page turning energy, and this is very exciting. This is a good thing, and that Vesta is going to help us end the month on a much more optimistic, in a much more optimistic way than we even begin it. Okay. All right. Thanks for hanging with me, guys. I will see you in November. You guys take care. Bye-bye. Hey Aquarius, I hope you guys are doing great. So let's break out the most important things for you to understand about October. First thing is October 2nd. We have the new moon and the solar eclipse happening in the sign of Libra in your ninth house. Ninth house is a big house. It's a Jupiter ruled energy. This has to do with foreign land, foreign travel. It has to do with anything connected to the legal system, lawyers, legality, local governance. It has to do with higher education, higher mindedness, religion, organized or otherwise, politics. Anything that's going to expand your experience. So, whether it's traveling the world or whether it's learning something new, it's a very expansive space. Okay. It is very connected, though, to the manifestation of father energy as well. So the new moon can be a realization. It's father, grandfather energy, learning something new, something coming to light. New moon, solar eclipse, okay? Something gets eclipsed out so that something new can come in. In the sign of Libra, Libra has to do with parenting, very connected to money, very connected to love, very connected to, because it's a Venusian energy. Something gets eclipsed out, something gets eclipsed in. Libra is very connected to relationships. It's very connected to contracts, our energetic output at work. So quite frankly, new moon in that ninth house energy, if you work in a ninth house sector having to do with law, legalities, local governance, politics, publishing, marketing, advertising, anything having to do with writing, anything having to do with higher education, if you work in any of those realms, many of you can absolutely end up getting some sort of new employment opportunity where you're leaving something and you're taking something new in. We do want to watch father or grandfather health during this kind of transit, new moon, solar eclipse in that Libra energy. We do want to watch out for that, that kind of energy for sure as well. But it's not only that's what's happening in your ninth house. We have the South Node, which is all about letting something go in the sign of Libra. And that has to do with a contract. That has to do with the boss or bosses. That has to do with a marriage. It has to do with a serious relationship that's also working with the sun. So the sun has to do with falling in love, love affairs, romance, something connected to employment, something connected to father energy, something connected to your joy. It's working with Estrella. Estrella is about something's been going on for so long and it's got to stop. It's got to end the way that it's been. It's got to end. Australia is like it's past the expiration date. That things should have not continued to this degree, but it did. That's working with Mercury, so it's time to talk about it. It's working with Black Moon Lilith and Libra, which is a mirroring energy. So, this is a time to be super honest with yourself. If there's an issue going on with your father, right? And maybe he's been the main problem, but you've been tolerating it, you're responsible to a certain degree for that as well. If there's some sort of situation going on with the law or legalities, you're going to be in this space where you're going to try the negotiating, because the ninth house is all about negotiating. The worst thing that you can do is 100% blame somebody else. There's a lot of benefit in realizing your role in something. Even if you're not the instigator, even if you're only the one who's reacting or responding to someone else's challenging behavior. It's about really looking at how well and how healthy are you dealing with it. Are you avoiding conversation? Are you allowing an unhealthy process to go on? That kind of thing. Have you been, if it's connected to your employment, because it can certainly be connected to employment, have you been looking hard enough for work? Have you been looking in the right spaces, or are you keeping yourself on a very narrow path? These are all questions that can end up coming up. The new moon can bring new material to light if you're dealing with a legal situation. And the solar eclipse, right? This could be very connected to a legal situation. Solar eclipse can eclipse something out, an old way of thinking, and bring in some sort of new evidence into light. And remember, Libra is the scales. It is very connected to the quartz as well. But it is going to be this idea of fairness versus unfairness. And something's been really unfair for a while, and that needs to have, you need to have the conversation. But it should be handled in a very diplomatic way, because that's the way to have success in this outcome. Now, the next week, that next Wednesday, Jupiter goes retrograde in the sign of Gemini, and that Gemini energy is in your 5th house. So you could feel a little like unlucky in your relationship, or in having to do with your business, or having to do with friends. And I don't want you to sweat it. Jupiter going retrograde just makes us feel a little misunderstood, a little I guess not feeling lucky. I mean, what is that? That's even sounds silly, but we don't feel like we're heard and we're understood in the same way. So we can have some disagreements with friends, with a significant other, with our children. We can have, if you have a strong Gemini in your life, there could be some sort of challenges there. It's only going to be for a month. Don't sweat that. Now, on October 11th, Friday, October 11th, Pluto goes direct in Capricorn. This is going to be kind of a big deal for you, because this is the last degree. It's getting its last little hoo-ha in that 12th house of the hidden. You guys haven't really been feeling Pluto the way a lot of the other signs have been, because it's in the house of the hidden since 2008. But now he's going to go barreling into your first house of self in the next 20 years in the middle of November. But for this month, from October 11th to the middle of November, he's going to be still in that Capricorn energy, but direct. So you're not going to feel so stuck in your creativity, so stuck in your ability to problem solve, because it works opposite the 6th house of solutions. You're going to start to feel the pieces of your life are going to start to slowly but surely come together in a very different way. Mercury goes into Scorpio on October 13th, and that Scorpio energy is in your 10th house. Now, for 4 days, from the 13th to the 17th, Mercury and Venus are in there together. So, guys, if you have to interview, or if you have to send your CV or your resume for anything, please let it be during those days, from the 13th to the 17th. Those are really beautiful days. Mercury is very connected to being understood. It's very connected to writing. It's very beautiful for actually interviewing, because obviously it's communication. 10th house is your career. Venus has to do with your money, and also being perceived in a very positive light in the sign of Scorpio, which has to do with change and transformation. A lot of you can be coming to the realization that you might need to move for work, because with Scorpio in that 10th house, many of you may have to ultimately move for work. That's what Scorpio, it's moving, but it's moving specifically for a 10th house reason, for work, or it could even be for a marital situation. But that Venus is only going to be in there with Mercury for those 4 days. Then on the 17th, Venus goes into Sagittarius in your 11th house of goals and gains. This is an excellent energy, also really good, not to such a degree, but also very, very good for interviewing, very good for networking, socializing. Excellent. I mean, this is the kind of energy where you're meeting people out. So definitely rub elbows. Don't stay in if you're being invited to any sort of social functions. Don't think, it's a waste of time or whatever. Don't, because you're going to be meeting people. This is a really good month, even into November, a really good month for meeting people and making connections that are going to actually end up advancing you in that sign of Sagittarius, having to do with those goals and gains, having to do with the future, especially if you do work in any sort of Sagittarian field, everything that I said, publishing, marketing, advertising, law, legalities, anything having to do with like governance, anything to do with that, anything having to do with like security, especially if it has to do with the masses and like protecting people on a larger scale. Very good connected to that. Anything like that, beautiful energy. I really, really like that Venus energy in Sagittarius. Now, also on the same day, we have the full moon in Aries. Now, I like it because those energies on the 17th, Venus going into Sag and the full moon energy in Aries are actually trining each other. So it's a very supportive energy. And that full moon in Aries is something being realized from in the mode and through some sort of communication. So full moon in Aries in the third usually brings a message. So, and it's something that's going to be out of your wheelhouse a little bit. It's going to make you a little nervous. It's ultimately going to be very healing because it's working in there with Chiron. But it's something, some sort of new path kind of thing. So you'll be finding out that you got the job. You might be finding out that there's something going on. And I know this sounds random, but it's not. It's sort of the same thing. Something you could get that something is going on with your physical body. So you could be getting, some sort of notification from a doctor that you're needing to do something different, but it's fine. You're going to be just fine with it. But it's like there's going to have to be some sort of change in the way that you're living your life, in just a small way. It could be that there could be full moon energy in Aries in the third house, could be something happening in the life of one of your siblings. Something coming to realization or fruition having to do with any family member or even an old friend. Full moon in Aries, there could be conversation again about moving because the third houses rule your neighborhood, your neighbors, and your zip code. So full moons brings something new to the forefront for us to recognize. And the moon is very connected to property and real estate as well. So on the 22nd, we have the sun goes into Scorpio again in that 10th house. So there's going to be a lot of focus on your career, public reputation, the standing in the world, having to do with your biggest relationships as well. There's going to be a lot of focus on that. And in Scorpio, some of you might be focused on getting married. Some of you might be focused on getting divorced. Some of you might be focused on starting a business, investments, any sort of property, real estate kind of thing that would involve mortgages or banks in any kind of way. There could be a lot of focus on that, focus on paying off any sort of debt. Anything like that, but getting very serious about your future. I mean, this is definitely what I see for you guys. And you have a lot of really good energy coming in to help you out with all of these things. And then we have Vesta going into Libra at the end of the month on the 26th. And of course, that's going into the 9th house of law, legalities. So there's a lot of perseverance that's going to be in your house of expansion, having to do with the law, higher mindedness, higher education, politics, religion, everything that 9th house energy is, this idea of negotiating. You are going to have the perseverance that you need to deal with whatever it is that's manifesting in that 9th house. You do have Hygeia is retrograde and very active in the 4th house. So some of you may have been homesick for a while. Some of you may be experiencing maybe you're a parent being sick. Nothing crazy though, guys. This is just Hygeia. This is just Hygeia. It's like needing to just deal with a little something, something. But because it's also working with Uranus, right? It could be one of your children as well, some sort of, challenging situation dealing with their physical body, having to do with their health. But Uranus in there as well, retrograde is all about creating big change. So while there have been some challenges going on, there were a lot more optimistic changes that are coming in. And I really like the way that October is ending with Vesta in that ninth house for you. It's optimistic because it's a Jupiter ruled energy, and Vesta is about perseverance. And it's like, well, I can lay down and let life happen to me, or I could get up, dust myself off, and change the lens through which I'm seeing things, and just feel better about things, right? So that is what I see for you guys. I hope this was helpful in some way. Thanks for hanging with me, and I'll see you in November. Bye-bye. Pisces, last but definitely not least, how are my fishy friends? So let's talk about October. We're going to start with October 2nd. We have a party going on in that eighth house. It is not only the new moon and solar eclipse in Libra, but oh my goodness, we have the moon, we have Juno, we have Vulcan, Black Moon Lilith, Mercury, Estrella, the Sun, South Node, all in your eighth house. What? They're all hanging out in there. So I'm going to kind of throw it together. I'm going to string together a little bit of a narrative. On its own, the new moon brings new realizations in the eighth house of endings and beginnings, life and death, other people's money, inheritance, insurance payout, divorce settlement, decision to get married, decision to have a child, passing away of somebody. To all eighth house. A new moon is realization, something coming out to be realized, but it's also working with an eclipse. And that eclipse energy, solar, it's not having to do with our emotions. It has more to do with our focus. That something's got to be, our focus needs to change somehow so that a new focus can come in. In this sign of Libra, which is connected to relationships, is very connected to our boss, our bosses. It's connected to our energetic output. Because some of you might be realizing, like, I want to move. I want to work differently. I want to get out of this marriage. I want to get married. It's in the eighth house. I want to get in front of my taxes, my debt, anything that's out there, really looking at any sort of investments. That's what's going to be happening there. But that's not the only story, because it's also working with the South Node, which is kissing up to the sun. So there's going to be a lot of focus on something needing to change. Got to let go of something. And it's something, because it's working with Estrella. Estrella is very much about, it is past the expiration date. I need to let this go once and for all. It's working within a couple of degrees, 2 degrees of Mercury. So all of these emotions that you're going to be feeling, is this fair? Is this not fair? How is this going to end up manifest? Looking at money, looking at fairness, looking at transparency, who's being honest, who's not. Especially when it's connected to Juno, which could be connected to a marital situation or some sort of business situation that you've been very connected to. Anything that you were very connected to in a very committed way. Something's ending. Something has to end the way that it was, because it's working with Vulcan. Vulcan brings it down to the ground and says, no, 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 it's done. It's done the way that it's been, but we can redo it a very different way. But it's working with Black Moon Lilith. So you want to make sure that you're being very self-honest. I know a lot of people are not going to be like, not going to like me saying that this month, but I need to be transparent here. Black Moon Lilith in Libra, Libra is a sign of mirroring. So when it comes to, is something transparent or not, is something fair or not, maybe you aren't the one that's been unfair, but are you the one that's allowing it to, were you the one that allowed it to continue? Or were you the one that allowed it to ultimately happen in the first place? I know that's harsh, but there's a lot of blessing in that realization, because it's about putting everything in context. Because wherever Black Moon Lilith is, we have a blind spot. And you have the blind spot right in the dead center of this new moon and this solar eclipse in Libra, in the sign that deals with relationship and boss and bosses. It's like, okay, maybe they did X, Y, and Z, but what did you do? And being very honest about it, because Mercury's in there and the discussion has to be made. It has to happen. But it's got to be done in an honest way where there's transparency and empathy exercise. Otherwise, it's going to go to hell in a handbasket really quick. So you want to make sure that, letting cooler heads prevail, and you're really kind of saying, okay, This is how it's going to go down, right? That's how it's going to go down. Something's got to end though in that space. What's ending? Now, eighth house has to do with sex, intimacy, shared goals and values in life, other people's money, divorce, marriage, birth, death, inheritance, the stock market, any kind of investment. Those are the themes. Something's ending for something new to come in. It's working with Black Moon Lilith, but that ending, excuse me, is real. Oh, my big pink cup. Crazy is that? I drink the water, right? So that's happening on the 2nd. A week later, on October 9th, also a Wednesday, Jupiter is going retrograde in Gemini. So it's happening in your 4th house. Now, when Jupiter goes retrograde in Gemini, it could feel like Mercury retrograde on steroids. There could be some sort of challenging conversation with family over property and real estate, over your ability to feel emotionally secure. There could be some sort of challenge. It's not going to last. It's not going to last because Jupiter is very much about expansion and positiveness, right? But when Jupiter is retrograde, we have a hard time accessing that. So we can therefore feel misunderstood. We can feel like we're talking very clearly, but then people aren't understanding us the way that we're intending. And then it sounds like Mercury retrograde, right? Well, because it's in Gemini is why I'm saying that. And so that's where it can get a little tricky. There can be a lot of confusion that you're trying to really navigate around the idea of property and or real estate, anything having to do with one of your children, anything having to do with your first family as well. There could be not feeling, there might be a little snafu with your family because they don't really understand where you're coming from. They don't agree with something that you're doing, whatever it is, that is going to be the energy for the month. But I don't want you to hang on to that for too long because that's not going to be lasting for that long. Now, Pluto going direct in Capricorn on October 11th is going to be happening in your 11th house of goals and gains, the next 10 to 15 years of your life, your friends. Now, Pluto retrograde in the 11th house, there could have been a lot of stagnation in friendships, situations with an older sibling, situations having to do with the daughter-in-law, son-in-law, stepchildren, grandchildren, or even the ability to feel like you're moving forward in your life. Like you feel very set on where you live and what you're doing for the next 10 to 15 years. There might have been this stagnation, and now that's going to finally lift, right? Because it's at 29 degrees. It's all about being responsible. It's all about wanting that stability. But for that 1 month, and then a month later, Pluto's going to be going into your 12th house of the hidden for the next 20 years. That's, Pluto in the house of self-sabotage, the house of disease and disease, the house of, it's very creative. It's a very spiritual, but there are going to be a lot of changes in that part of your chart, but we'll talk about that when that comes. But Pluto going direct to 29 degrees, you're going to feel this forward movement in friendships, forward movement in where it is that you're going, even if you're not completely sure of where that means for you. Now, some of you, I do want to say, Pluto in the 12th house could actually bring a lot of employment that is connected to other people where you're doing a lot of behind the scenes work. Could certainly be in that space where you're doing work for other people, especially anything that's connected to Pluto. So you're doing behind the scenes work, like having to do with anything having to do with finances, anything having to do with estates, anything having to do with any sort of even HR, even anything having to do with HR. I don't want to make it all about that. And we'll speak about that more specifically when Pluto actually moves into that space. But we also have Mercury going into Scorpio on the 13th, and Mercury's going to be in Scorpio in your 9th house with Venus for about 4 days. And I really like them together because they don't really have anybody really bothering them. So in that 9th house of negotiating, of law, legalities, local governance, higher mindedness, anything in higher education, whether you're going or you're employed there, anything to do with importing and exporting, but just straight on negotiating, launching, marketing, advertising, any of those things. Also very nice for the manifestation of father energy. So you'd be having a really good a really good conversation maybe with your father, if your father is still with you. Very connected though to this idea of maybe getting a loan or money given to you for your debt or for moving, any kind of situation like that. There can certainly be that for some of you, but for others of you, that Venus and Mercury energy in the ninth house, having a conversation with somebody about finances in a way where they're helping you out. Maybe they're investing in a business that you're want to be a part of, but very nice energy there. It is a nice energy. And then on the 17th, though, then during the day, Venus goes into Sagittarius, which is in your 10th house of career, public reputation, standing in the world, the status of your marriage, where it is that you are. It's going to be working with your Pallas Athena. Very nice energy there for work, for where it is that you're going. I like it. Venus is the baby benefic. Feeling pretty good about where it is that you're going. Nice energy there for sure. Full moon in Aries is also happening on that same day, on that 17th, that Thursday, the 17th. And that Aries energy is happening in your second house. Now, the full moon, something comes to fruition. And in the second house of the money you make from the work that you do, a full moon can bring an opportunity where you end up making money or more money than you are right now, or you realize suddenly that you have more money in your account. Now, that could certainly have to do with the new moon and the solar eclipse in Libra in the 8th, especially if it has to do with you gaining some sort of money from an outside entity, where the eclipse out could be someone passing, but eclipse in could be an inheritance, and it ends up manifesting as more money in your account, ultimately, with that full moon in Aries. It could also be a full moon in Aries in the second, because the second house rules anything that you put in your mouth, and it also rules your internal body. Oh, excuse me, I just moved. That full moon there um, can bring some sort of culmination to some sort of health situation that's going on, that's going to require you to take some sort of new approach to how it is that you live your life. And I wouldn't be surprised if that is the manifestation, because it is working with Chiron retrograde as well as the North Node retrograde in there. Chiron retrograde manifests internally, and it's not only about spiritual and emotional wounds, but also physical. So it can be some sort of physical situation going on, that the full moon in Aries says, okay, it's time to eat differently. It's time to stop drinking so much. It's time to do whatever that situation is that you have going on. It's time to stop spending irresponsibly. It's time to stop giving away your money. You guys are so loving and giving. And it's like, I mean, it annoys me for you, because Pisces, you guys get taken advantage of, man. You do. You get taken advantage of. You got to be careful. You just do. Okay. So that could certainly be happening, but there is something coming up there with that eclipse, definitely connected to that second house of your money and or your physical body that you need to pay attention to. Now, and those are the themes. So we have the sun going into Scorpio on October 22nd. So the focus is going to be in that ninth house of negotiating, the law, legalities, local governance. Some of you may be dealing with lawyers. So I hope none of you are dealing with prison. We don't want that. But there is a lot of focus there on, in that space. But it's the sun. So the sun can also represent monetizable talents, creative projects, and the ninth house has to do with launching, marketing, and advertising. So hopefully a lot of you are starting your own business, getting something going that you want to get out there to the world. This Scorpio season is a beautiful time to do it. There's no question. And to end the month, we have Vesta going into Libra. And we love Vesta because Vesta is very connected to perseverance. And in the sign of Libra, it's being able to persevere and be very fair and level-handed when it comes to something that is connected to your eighth house. Whatever's ending, whatever's beginning, whatever's going through change, you are going to have the perseverance and the wherewithal to deal with it. So even if things are a bit challenging, we're ending with that Vesta energy there. It's going to give us all a lot more of an optimistic tone to whatever is being navigated throughout the month. Okay. So I hope that was helpful, my friends. Thanks for hanging with me, and I will see you in November. You guys take care now. Bye bye.